there's a big flooding, and the story is about, this scorpion and this frog. And what they do is they come up and they're away from each other, and they're looking at each other, and they're like, they don't know, they got to get across. They didn't realize this big flood waters came. So the frog was just about ready to jump in the water, and the scorpion says, "Hey, listen, I can't swim. Can you help me out?" And the frog goes, "Are you stupid? You're going to sting me and kill me." And the scorpion goes, "Why would I do that? I'm on your back. I told you I don't know how to swim. So if I stung you, we both would die." And the frog goes, "Wow, I guess that's a great point." So the scorpion gets on the frog's back. They get right in the middle, and the scorpion stings him. And the frog looks up at the scorpion and goes, "Why did you do that?" And he said, "Well, it's who I am. It's in my nature. I'm a scorpion." Still one of the favorite parts of the movie, that he was looking at the guy that's defending his life, right? And he goes, so how many times does the average person goes back before they go on? And he goes, "You're really concerned about average, aren't you?"
Right.
He's like, you're really interested in just what the status quo is.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, God,
we're like we're herd tribe-based creatures. So like what ends up happening is when you're in those situations, it's like, well, I don't want to be picked on for being abnormal. So what is normal? What's
Right.
baseline, right?
Right.
And even in certain science fiction movies, like we watched same theater room. We watched Blade Runner 2049, and after every single time he does something, he has to come back and say those lines over and over again.
Like Groundhog
Interlinked.
Day.
Yeah, exactly. So he's back at baseline, right? Like that they know that he's fine, that his mind's
I think
not
that's the
gone.
metaphor that we see in defending your life is you have your baseline, and even Groundhog Day, you have your baseline that you know of, that occurs and that your mind is already wrapped around and pre-programmed, but that's not the idea of the defender or those that are judging you to
Right.
move on to the next level.
Great point. Yeah.
It's thinking outside,
so,
and it shows that you need to think outside the box. Well, what happens at the very end? He thought outside of the box, and he ran to the other tram to be with
yeah.
his.
I love the other things that they kept bringing up to him, times in his life, and he always thought it was about money.
Mm.
He goes, "I can't believe that this is all about money."
Right.
And they were going like, "It has nothing to do with money." But the way they were hearing him, and so like, I like to show you the scene where, a college person of yours introduced you to a guy, and they were looking for investment money for Casio. And he goes, "Everybody knows that timepieces now, if you had a new watch that came from Sweden, where everyone's knowing about." And he's like, "No, this isn't going to have any hands on it. It's going to have it's going to show your time digitally." And he's like, "That ain't never going to fucking fly." And then
Well, that's like,
I love the pose. I love the pose. They go, "Well, his small investment, would have made him one of the wealthiest people in the world today." And the prosecutor goes, "Judge, I don't know if you're aware of Casio." And he goes, "Where it was." It was such a bitch slap. And he goes, "Well, if it's not about money." And they go, "Well, great. Tell us what you did with your money." "Well, I invested it in cows." "And how much did that make you?" "They all died." Man, cow disease.
right.
I
feel that way. I do
love my
too.
recall. I'm bizarre.
I'm kind of like, in a way, I'm like, how do you take that same idea and like put it in more of a modern day term, like a modern day spin on it? Because when we were watching the
Well, it would
film,
be real. I think it would be easy, Matt, because just like we were talking about, if we decided to do this subject, you'll constantly look back at yourself, and the theme would be, you're going to be okay. You're going to come out better on the other side. Get rid of the fear. Who gives a shit what other people think? That's always going to be the common theme. Is like, well, you didn't do what you were supposed to do because you were too busy fucking imaginating on the worst possible fucking things that could happen.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I think that it's like it's so ingrained on us now to do that. It's so like we just question ourselves constantly, and I'm one of
Oh,
those people that does that too, but I've gotten better
We
at
all
it at
do.
least
Yeah.
where
yeah,
I'm like
that's
I
human.
question things, but I now question them more from a personal place instead of more of like I've said, less me fitting in, more is this something I want to be doing?
Yeah,
Especially with the way the world is going and the unpredictability of it. Because like you were bringing up the Casio thing and him saying, "Oh, well, that's never going to catch on," right? There's like a whole group of people that thought the internet and personal computers wouldn't catch on, and then there's now those situations where people, even in the communities that I'm in, will go show like Sora videos or go show like Chat GPT to people, their grandparents or their parents, and they're all looking at it and going, "Oh, that's a cool like little toy." Like they don't realize that this is the beginning of like a whole new version of what we're doing as human beings. Just like the internet. If you would have shown my grandma the internet, she would have been like, "Oh, that's cool. I can like look up recipes and stuff on the internet now. I don't have to
Yeah.
look in a cookbook." It wouldn't connect with her
no,
that
She could do
people can
much
make
more.
anything. Yes, of course, and that's AI right now. So it's like this whole thing of like I feel like I'm living in a bubble, right? Because it's you hear all these new developments happening every single day, or the new movements of things that are happening. Like the State of the Union was last night, right?
Mhm.
I'm like, I wonder how much he'll talk about AI. It was like barely at all. Isn't that interesting?
yeah,
Even though it matters so much economically for what president we have in the next 4 years for that, it's huge. People don't realize that. That, like,
yeah.
as
People were
everyone's
saying
losing their jobs.
I didn't watch it. So people were
Mhm.
just saying like it was weird. Like it wasn't really a State of the Union more than it was for him to stand in front of the country and do his campaign for his next
Yeah.
presidency. And
Well,
people are
and
going like, if you ever look at any State of the Union, the words State of the Union, this
but
is
over
what
the years, it's gotten that way,
yeah,
Robert.
this is our current state of
Yeah.
what's going on, and to do the best to figure out where we plan on going in the future. But it's like, the future is going to be me being your president.
Yeah.
It's like-
Well,
As
it's like
opposed
the
to
the
somebody
modern
else.
media stuff
Yeah.
too. It's like, they know that this is their opportunity to, like, talk to everybody,
oh,
and
he's not
Biden
going
is
to get
nowhere
in front of
near
another audience unless he
like,
debates.
you wanna see how the
Right.
internet works, and I feel like even though, I'm not a fan of Trump's, he gets this to a certain extent, but, like, that whole thing of out of everything that happened with the State of the Union address, the only thing that I've seen all over the internet is him having that reaction to Marjorie Taylor Greene and all the Trump stuff. That's what I've seen consistently on the internet. Isn't that funny? How, like, no matter what he had said last night, my generation is just going, "Look how funny it is that he laughed at this woman dressed in all this Trump garb while she's there."
Right.
Right? And I think, like, people are just not they don't believe what he's saying or whatever. Like, I was sitting here
It,
watching it kind of, like, laughing because 'cause I'm like, there's such a disconnect from
yeah.
modern society in this, so
When you go back and see, some of the like John F. K's and back in the days when the president would say something, and when he did the State of the Union speech, it was about us, the people. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And everyone stood up. Everyone fucking was applauding. This is where we are going as a country. And then then Obama steps into office and someone screams from the audience, "You're a fucking liar." And it's like, Jesus Christ.
well, this
It's
Mhm.
like
stuff has existed in Europe for a while.
I
If you've
don't yeah,
watched,
I
like, a
don't know if
European
it's
parliament, they,
Oh,
like,
yeah,
yell
I
at
yeah.
don't
each
know
other.
if they get in fist
Exactly.
fights, man.
Right.
Well,
It's
those
weird
are those
because
are
that's
more
just
in Asia than they are in Europe, although I think lately, given the state of
the world.
humanity or lack thereof, I
Yeah.
mean, it kind of is showing these are the it was interesting when I was watching it. It was like, okay, yes, you're right. It was more of a political kind of thing, but I don't know if it would have been as successful if it would have been one of the older style State of the Unions, because you've got Trump sitting there, running off about everything.
Right.
The government has not really taken to, which it needs to do, obviously, but the government has not done what it should have done. He committed crimes. It doesn't matter. That's the bottom line. He committed crimes. So this would not be a normal State of the Union, in my opinion.
It
And
is
it
really
needs,
funny how we're polarized, though.
yeah.
One of the things
And
that
that's the bottom line there, is the
the one
polarization.
thing that I seen in, watching Bill Maher, because I always like watching both sides, Craig.
Me
And
too.
one of the ladies said in the last Bill Maher, is she goes, um, it's very, very interesting that people keep saying that Donald Trump committed, broke the law. Um, but normally you have to go to court and have a jury of your peers say you're guilty. She goes, not anymore.
No, you have the
Not
court of public
anymore.
opinion now.
So when, the Supreme Court rules, that's why everyone's pissed off. It was the one of the only times in history that all of them agreed. All of them agreed. You said that he did this crime and you're taking him off the ballot. According to the law, you have to go through a court of your peers as a president. It would be Congress, and then get you impeached. And then the Senate says we do too, and you're impeached. So that's the law. Why is everyone in a law place saying this guy committed a fucking crime and he can't be on the ballot? You got to be convicted of a fucking crime. You just don't
Sure.
get to say this person did the crime. And I love what the lady said. She said, do you realize that we live in a world today that if you went out and said anything about anybody else other than Donald Trump, and you said, listen, this guy did this crime, he can sue you for libel. Because if the person's not convicted of a crime, you can't fucking tell people on public television that this guy was convicted of a crime. You can't
Yeah,
do it.
Well,
right.
yeah.
But everybody out there on the other side is going, this guy's been convicted of all these crimes. He actually did it without a shadow of a doubt. How do I feel? He did it. But still, we're like just waving off a whole part of what makes us a democratic. It's
Yeah.
like someone
Yeah.
gets to say you did it. They got to put the evidence together. And then from that evidence, you get in front of a group of your peers and they say, yeah, you fucking did it, or no, you didn't. And
Yeah,
it's
I'm
like,
just wondering when the Democratic Party will realize that they need to paint a better picture of the future to get votes instead of paint a worse picture of the future based
mhm,
off of the other party. Because that didn't work the first time when they tried it with him, and the only reason it worked the second time was because of COVID. If COVID
you're,
wouldn't have
you're
happened, I don't think
you're
that
right on the
Biden would have
money with
won.
that. Not, not that we need to talk about this, but
Even with the shit that he did after Biden won with the insurrection, like what's so interesting about watching the State of the Union and stuff now being 32 in comparison to when I saw it when Obama did it, right? Um, and then the Trump ones were more similar to what Biden did last night. It was more of just a place to say how great you did and how bad the other
Exactly.
person is,
yeah,
Yeah.
right?
That's
So it's not
exactly
like they
right.
both haven't done the same thing, but I think what's so interesting about the duality of them is Trump now has a platform not only to be like, make America great again, but he can also now have a platform saying Biden didn't do a good job, which he didn't have last time, right?
right,
It was just Biden saying Trump's doing an awful job. And it was so in plain sight because of COVID that he was floundering that people were like, readily going out and doing those things. Now, the thing that I think that might change things quite a lot is like that hidden middle, which is like the people that are so pro abortion and Roe v. Wade being codified that they're going to vote Democrat regardless because they know that that's at least. I think Trump would do the opposite. Like, I see more restrictions happening to women's rights if Trump becomes
Yeah.
president.
Oh, well, it's
I
already starting. The way the
well,
Republican
the bill
Party
now,
is working.
yeah.
Right.
Matt, did you hear that you now can buy birth control over the counter?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Well,
they're
you can
saying that
buy you
3
can buy
months
abortion stuff
3
in
months
many
is
states or
yeah,
whatever
3
straight through
months
the
is
mail. So,
yeah, 3 months is $49. Jesus, you know?
well,
It's
it's still
like,
one of those things. I love the joke, right? Because I am married to a woman. So, if you're in a relationship, then you know like how shitty birth control is for hormones and for women.
wow.
And I love the joke of it
Yeah.
saying like, "Hey, if men had to deal with all of those side effects, then we would have solved the problem already. But because
Yeah.
it's women that have to deal with it, it's like, oh, we'll get to it when we get to it, right?" Like the fact that there's not any male birth control yet is kind of hilarious and sad, you know?
We
So,
knew my wife and I knew the stuff that was side effects for her. Every woman's different. And
mhm,
that was a conversation that we had early in our dating, that if she decided to go on birth control, that when we decided to have no more kids, I would have a vasectomy
mhm.
immediately to just, get her off of it. And I did, you know what I mean?
Right.
So, yeah,
I
so
think that's the right way to do it because like that's the only option that men have and it's non-hormonal, right? It doesn't affect us in a negative way to my knowledge.
well,
Like I
I don't know. I'm like, I don't know how weird I am now compared to when, you know, it
Uh, y you have this, eye tick that you didn't have before, but
it's like
the twinkle
it's
in your
like,
eye is gone, but I don't
after
know.
I know it stopped my road rage. No, I'm
Yeah.
kidding.
No, come on, it didn't. That's not true, let's not. No,
No,
it's
yeah.
funny
It's
because,
funny. That would
a
be
lot
a
of people are worried about
good
those types of
comedic
things,
that
right?
would be a good comedic joke, you know what I mean? It's like, vasectomies don't have any side effects, now people hit on my wife and I don't care.
God.
I
I
don't feel like I need to fight for a
I
female anymore.
that's you might wanna check your T levels, alright? That might be a issue. So, it's interesting though
Oh,
because,
man.
you watch things like Joe Rogan and all this shit, and me being a 32-year-old man, like, I'm getting older and older myself, so there's things like, okay, now you gotta they're talking about now having your prostate and stuff checked even earlier because they're finding that that helps a lot in stopping like bad shit from happening. So it used to
Yeah.
be going at when you're 40 and now they're saying maybe going when you're 35. So now me being 32, I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to start. That's going to be part of,
Your
my
future,
healthcare.
like
My
breast
my
cancer, like getting
exactly,
mammograms for
right?
women. Yeah.
Right. And what's so interesting about that is watching podcasts like Joe Rogan and stuff like that. All these men, your guys' age and a little younger and a little older now, are so pro HGH. Like they're openly talking about it, right? Like they're so pro testosterone hormone treatment. And
Wow.
it's like so much more now. There's more science involved in it. What's so interesting about it is you know, before they had it more refined. I didn't know much of this shit until I heard about it, but like before
Right.
they had it more refined and regulated, it obviously caused a bunch of side effects because now we're dealing with the male version of that hormone, right?
Yeah.
Testosterone
Yeah.
instead of estrogen. And they're finding now with these new things that it's actually like lowering prostate cancer. It's lowering these other like other issues and other things. And so it's like, okay,
I'm gonna follow your lead, and I'm just gonna wait for AI to tell me what I need.
probably would tell you to do it. But it's
Start
Yeah.
taking
interesting though.
HGH, Robert.
It's
I
interesting because
I
you watch all
guarantee
these
you
dudes,
I
right?
guarantee you that AI is gonna disprove so much shit,
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
because the way the medical and supplements and all these things, like, the this new product that
Oh, the
FDC
CBDA?
came out with,
Yeah.
and it's supposed to be 10 times stronger than CBD. This shit does nothing to me.
Yep.
But the
Nothing.
other stuff does.
I don't know. I believe it does.
Yep. The placebo.
Yeah.
So I take it a lot because I did my research on CBD, and I just believe that Josh and Jenna, are trying to make the best they can make. That's all I can
Yeah.
say. So if this stuff is
It
10
works.
times
This stuff
better,
works. Yeah.
yeah, if this stuff is 10 times better, I always love the not getting off track, but when I seen a dog that was shaking and someone put CBD in the dog's mouth and it stopped shaking and his tail started wagging, I'm just going, you can't teach an animal how to lie.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, there's
You
enough
know?
medical stuff behind it, and we know like the positive effects of it. That's why all the regulations on it have been slowly dropping. It's interesting.
Yeah.
That was one of the things that he
That would
did talk about
He
last
brought
night.
that up last night. Yeah. About marijuana,
Yeah,
legalizing
that
it.
people shouldn't be legalizing marijuana. It was brought
Stigmatized
up
for
in the
it.
State of the Union that they
Yeah.
want to legalize marijuana.
Yeah.
That should already happened.
Yeah, well, that's the funny thing about watching the
Can I
State of the
remind
Union.
you that you're 3.5 years in, motherfucker?
He
That was
did
a
just get
Well,
rid of
I think it's
the
not
crimes, which was
so
good,
much as
right?
nationwide and yeah, Matt, the crime part of it. It's
But
still not
still,
nationwide. You
it
still
should
have
yeah,
be
but
states.
just like they did
decriminalized.
with
Maybe not legalized, but at least decriminalized so we can do
Yes.
studies on it.
yeah. So that was that one thing that I said one time. I go, to show you how crazy the federal government is. Do you know that with the Farm Act, that CBD and anything with a 0.03 or lower concentration of THC is federally legal.
Right.
It's not legal in 50% of the states.
Yeah, because
What
there's
other
no
fucking
override.
law is there
Yeah.
where
No.
they go, "Hey, hemp and CBD is federally legal," and Idaho goes, "Nah, it's not
Exactly.
happening here."
Yeah.
It's just bizarre. So then the federal government says, marijuana, anything over 0.03 is federally illegal. And the states go, nah, it's legal. It's like, we're going
Right.
to constantly have this thing where certain pockets of people live in areas and
States'
elect
rights.
who they think should be running the state. And that
That's
state,
what's so interesting about the American experiment, right? Is that you can
yeah,
have like even as like okay, so say we live in a hypothetical maybe not world where Trump does win this election and there are more regulations on women's rights to choose and those types of things. I don't ever see California bending to that law
I
without
don't
no,
either.
force.
No.
no.
And to have force would be like an interesting way to try to do it. I just don't think it's going to work that way
Yeah.
because it's like, people believe of what the American experiment is in each different state. They believe differently. But one thing that I do love about California, at least on the social issues side, is that it's like very progressive. In some other areas, I think California is pretty behind in certain areas, but
Yeah, like
it's like
if you pay taxes
regulations for building houses so we don't have to spend $1 million to buy one. You know what I mean? Like there needs to be regulations on Airbnbs and certain things in California that really affect like the young people's ability to buy a house and live here.
yeah.
It sucks. So
And now what, LA County? I don't know if that's statewide, but I think it's just LA County that's got the luxury tax on homes now.
yeah, no, they did do
So-
that in LA County. And then I
And they
saw
say that the money's going to the homeless. Yeah, fuck you. It's going in your pocket.
right. I mean, what's so interesting about the homeless problem in California in general is it's such a consistent debatable issue that I don't know why you wouldn't want to fix it because it's such
Yep.
a slam dunk for the other side consistently,
Ever
Yeah.
since I watched a thing on
right? Like
60
it's like
Minutes.
why not pass a federal bill even to fix homelessness in the state of
Yeah.
California because it's so bad as the president of the United States just because I see posts all the time in the California subreddits on Reddit, or you'll see it on Twitter, where people are like, I just traveled here from Europe and went to Hollywood Boulevard, and I am disgusted
Yeah.
that this is the United States. Like, this is not like the movies at all.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
And that's the interesting thing, is like so many people see our films or see our illusion of what this country is at this point. And outside of the national parks, which do live up to those things, a
Yeah.
lot of the places that I've been, and this is just me, I'm not like a tourist type person. So we went to Seattle, me and Hannah, and then we're like, let's just do the Space Needle. We're here, right? Out of everything we did in Seattle, that was the worst thing we did.
God.
Really interesting.
The amount of people there, the amount of merchandise, the amount of stuff, it just felt
Okay, I
like
see
being
what
in a
you're
Las
saying.
Vegas casino, because
Yeah.
it's no longer like a structure, it's more merchandise, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So we get in line, and the line is long, and we wait 45 minutes to go upstairs, and then you get in an elevator that they pack with as many people as possible that can fit in it. You go all the way up, you're allowed 30 minutes to walk around before you have to go back down. While you're walking around, there's out on the other side of the glass, like, you could see out the glass and it looks beautiful, right? Like, Mount Rainier is there. It's like all this beauty, but you turn around and it's just walls of merchandise about Seattle and you're like, the whole experience has been monetized, right?
Yeah.
To a point
Yep.
where you can't get away from it anymore. There's no,
And then when you go down and you go out, you go through the gift shop, and anything
yeah,
that you do, you're going through, at the end of it, a gift shop. When you do the
Or
underground experience,
any
same
theme
thing.
park. Yeah.
Any theme park, you've got gift shops on the way out the door. Yeah, no,
but
that's
we're that way in other
capitalism.
places. There's always, it's not like it's just the US. I've heard going and seeing the Roman Colosseum can be a real pain in the ass too, because,
I'm
or
sure.
the Eiffel Tower, because what ends up happening is these are landmarks that are well known across the world. So it's not just tourists from the United States that want to see them. So what ends up happening is, when you go to these places, of course you're not the only person there. You're not a celebrity. You don't get to just walk in and see it for yourself. You have to be there with thousands of other people that are waiting in line, and it really makes it feel like, um I don't want to say a Disneyland experience, because Disney does it better than these people. I would say it's more like a Universal experience, because when we went to Universal for my birthday in January, right? We we were waiting in line for food for 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And you're like, "Whoa." Like, okay, so I got a hot dog and a lemonade and waited an
You paid
hour.
$20 for just
Oh, it was
those
more
2
than
items. Well, but
$20.
I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think the food, by the end of the whole trip, we had spent like $400 or $500 just on food.
Well, it's
Just
like if you go to
because,
Disneyland, you're gonna spend, for a
Now
family of 4, you're
before.
gonna spend up to $1,000 just to do what you want to do,
Yeah.
and
right.
that includes getting the Genie Pass so that you can at least get on a few rides for the day.
Yeah, now everyone has the skip. So now the skip line even is full of people.
Exactly.
I wrote a couple of notes before our inner circle last night, and one of the things that I wanted to cover is complaining. It's like,
Hey,
We're doing it now.
let's roll right into that. Yeah.
Well, I
Talk
thought maybe
about
you've
it.
been rolling right now, 'cause I
oh
mean,
my
this was
god,
Oh,
oh my god,
since we got here, I've
we're
been.
human,
So,
we're
Okay, good.
human.
Good.
yeah, no, I've been recording all of this. So,
Fantastic.
yeah. So if you guys, all the stuff you were talking about politically, that's all, I'm putting that out to air. So,
There you go, there you go.
Okay.
no, I'm just
Yeah,
kidding.
if you guys, if you're
Out of
gonna
me.
complain, I think that we can do it better than you. It's like,
Well,
I think
it's
anybody feels that they can do it better than the other person, especially if
I
you feel
mean,
you have a case for what
you're
you believe, and then you gotta try to get the okay, if we're gonna talk about, government, it's like, yeah, the left and the right, the reds and the blues, what happened to being purple and coming to a compromise? No, my way or the highway. Oh my God, if that's not in politics, at least today, if that's not relevant right
yeah,
now, the whole point
yep.
of what we were supposed to have with our government or with our democratic dem, a re, democratic republic or democratically republic country to become purple, we're not there.
not even close.
Not there, not
Yeah,
now, not like it used to be.
no,
Yeah,
because the
we're
internet
talking
exists.
they're
There's
talking
not,
now about Texas trying to vote again to separate itself from the
which would
from
be
the
Yeah.
United.
hilarious.
Oh, that
I would love
well,
to see that happen.
honestly, okay,
Because
if
I sometimes there's a part in my mind, and this is probably why people did vote for Trump, but there's a part in my mind that always is just like, fuck it, let's just go chaos. Let's just do it. Like, let's
Yeah,
just, because the whole situation is so unfixable. Like,
mhm,
it's just like the whole two-party system, and like even watching Biden speak last night, like you have all these a decent amount of young people even going like, no, you have to be saying nice things about Biden. You can't be saying shit about him, because if you do, we're gonna lose. And it's so interesting because it's like, uh, I brought this up last time these two guys were running. It's like there's no better options that we have
right.
than two
well, that's the
80.
bottom line is that they're not
Yeah,
willing
they're
to open
actually
up and be like, okay, in a sense,
Well, we're not forcing
England.
them to.
We're no, we're
yeah.
not, but we're not putting out now, the only one who's come close lately is Andrew Yang with his Forward Party, but even then, it's like, well, now wait a minute, we have the Trump issue, we have the Biden issue, and we don't
You know,
need this
1 or
person or that
2%.
person. Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
they
yes, the
were doing a
forward
bunch
idea
of
is nice, but
they were
can it
doing
Right.
a bunch
work?
of exit polls because, the only thing when Haley was trying to run against Trump and just going
Yeah,
as
Nikki
long as
Haley.
he could. Yeah, and Nikki Haley, and she said, I do want everybody to understand that yes, we got beat, but there was 40% of the people that showed up that vote Republican that said no.
Yeah.
And she goes, and they were saying the same thing about with Biden, that they think there's going to be this, it's going to be worse than ever any time in history of how many people actually show up and vote. It's like it's just to the point where our system is fucking broken. People die while they're voting in Congress. There's
Yeah.
no
Right.
term limits. No one's listening to anything, and you guys rigged it with gerrymandering and these candidates and fucking winning these Super Tuesdays. That you guys just pick out the person that ends up on the ballot. I can't even fucking write a person's name in.
You
It's
can,
like
but whether it's gonna make that much of a
Mhm.
difference or not, because
Yeah, and
there's no
so
other parties on the ballot enough or with enough money or enough clout. I mean, okay, the last candidate who really had any kind of clout, Bernie Sanders, but he was more democratic, but he got
yeah.
booted with the Hillary Clinton thing.
Yeah,
And
and
that's not
and
to
to
say
watch that happen to him 2
Twice.
elections in a row.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly, and he
it's
would
like
have been a perfect middleman for it.
we are going to make sure that this guy doesn't get in get he's not gonna be one of the choices.
Yeah,
And, to watch what the Democrats did to him was fucking super sad. It
it
was really,
was.
really sad.
You're
It's like
talking
I'm
about
with
you
you.
want the best man to win, not the least of the 2 selections.
Well, and
Best man or woman,
If
let's say
Bernie
that
would have
now.
won, he easily, in my opinion, would have won this second term as well, because of the whole social. He's always been very on top of the social issues
Oh, yeah.
aspect. And like I said,
but
they're
he just
talking
couldn't get
about
the
this
rest of it.
being
I'm
the
sorry.
worst turnout. No, you were talking about this being the worst turnout, right?
Right.
I I think that it will be the worst turnout for some of the older generations, but one of the larger turnouts for most of the younger generations. We've been
You
seeing
really
that
think
in the
so?
polls. Well, I think it's because I'm seeing a lot of grassroots movements and young people not to vote for Biden, but just to make sure that abortion doesn't become illegal. Like, that is such
Oh,
a
so you're saying they're gonna
top tier
show up
issue that
in
they're gonna show up
droves
and
for
vote.
the
Yes.
issues and the policies and
Well,
maybe
it would be
local
nice
It's
if it
government.
not
was
it's
available.
Yeah.
that's the kind of the reason Biden's in there in the first place. It's not like the whole younger generation wants Biden in there. It's just they don't want Trump in there because Trump might make abortion illegal. And like, that's just such a hot button issue for young people.
Well, this
Like
gets back to what
it's
I just
huge.
said about the lesser of two evils. I mean, if you're looking at it from that perspective, and it's a matter. The whole idea behind our uh, experiment, as a lot of people still call it, was compromise. If you win, you win. If you lose, you lose. You move on to the next election and you don't bitch and complain and moan about it. You build up your party so that you can become the better of the parties available at the time. And then you can run the country, which is going to be in the best interest of the masses, not
Yeah.
1% or 2% of the right extreme or left extreme. We're supposed to
Right.
be moving in the proper forward direction as center as possible to accommodate the most people. And it's like now the messages are so far right, far left. It's like this is getting ridiculous. Yeah, I
Right.
understand why young people are confused. And it's like, okay, how do I vote? Do I vote for, this guy because he believes this way, and it's way over here? Do I vote for this other guy because he believes it's way over here? What's wrong? And even okay, Biden said it last night, and I why can't he and Trump get together to talk about this and come to a compromise? Isn't that the way it's supposed to be? The one who scores the most points wins. Baseball, football, basketball, not not through an electoral college that's rigged.
You
Yeah.
can, but the thing is like everybody's rewritten the rules of what
Oh,
is
yeah.
or isn't. Like the
It
goalpost
never
has
stopped.
moved so many
It's like,
times that like now at this moment in time there can't be compromise because compromise would be seen as a loss.
Well,
yeah.
it would be considered a loss for depending on the party that's compromising because
Yeah,
they're
either
so
side.
far left or
Because
far right.
imagine news articles saying that Biden is now working with Trump. What the Democratic response to that would be after they've demonized him in a way and made him
Yeah.
out completely to be the devil of the Republican Party. Like him working now with Trump after calling him all those things or saying all those things is like there's only a few people on the in the political space that are willing to put up with that type of shit, and they're all on the Republican side. It's like Ted Cruz and them, right? Like the people that Trump can like literally say your wife is disgusting and ugly, and he'll still support
Or
him and
Mitch
endorse him.
McConnell. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
he's called his McConnell's wife out. It's what happened to the civility. And here's the other thing too, is it has not only become that way in politics, but also in our American life
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
civility
society.
requires compromise, and we don't compromise anymore.
No, just
So
because you
without
believe
that,
something.
it's
My
Yeah.
family experiences that, has experienced that over the last few years, where one side of the family is okay, they're more democratic in the way that they think. The other side is Republican in the way they think. And it be at least civil to each other and think and become a family unit. Otherwise, boy, that knife just cuts right down the middle and separates. I thought it was kind of funny and interesting when my stepmom and dad would almost draw a dividing line down the middle of the living room when they watched a 49er game and Raider game, 49ers versus Raiders. And they live in Fresno, which is kind of like right there at the dividing line. It's like,
oh
I
yeah. But yeah.
maybe it's something without us understanding the human behavior that it just makes us feel a little bit alive if we can side against someone. Like that competition part of us is just so ingrained in our DNA.
Do you
It's
think that
so
it like if you bring up a great point, Dad, because
yeah.
do you think that in a world where everything has been so um automated but on the human level, that like everybody goes to jobs, everybody does all these things, right? Some of the jobs are so mundane that it's like the same thing every day. So we're talking about machine work here to a certain
yeah,
extent, right? And if that's your day-to-day life and you're not feeling significant or winning in that area, then doesn't it make sense to align, whether it's religiously or politically, with something that you feel
or
is winning
or
consistently in a
sports
way?
Or
or
competition,
sports.
in any kind of
Competition,
competition,
right.
really.
It's like,
Yeah.
let's paint our
Yeah.
faces. I never ever remember, not saying again that the old days were the best days. I'm not saying that. I just never ever remember hearing people dying for going to a sporting event.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, now it ends up being 4 or 5 people a year, and these are just the ones that we hear about, where, you showing up, being proud to be, an away team,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? Showing up in the belly of the beast.
Oh, yeah.
And it's
Well
like, you can't be proud and just walk in. The most energy that I've ever felt in a live group of people is when I first went to California. Derry, my cousin, was going to USC. And so he goes, hey, this is the biggest night that we have, at USC. And it was the fight against USC and the UCLA.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And again, it's crazy that it was so okay. So when we get there, I'm looking at the stadium, which, LA Coliseum, shit, with 100,000 people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you're looking at it where the Olympics were. And it's like you can see gold and maroon on both sides of the arena and yellow and blue setting in the end zones. And I'm going like, uh, what? He goes, oh yeah, they're playing us. They're the away team. So when they come in to get the discount with their card saying that they're a UCLA student, they automatically get set in the worst seats in the Coliseum.
But
I'm
it's in
like,
reverse at the Rose Bowl when UCLA plays
and I'm going like,
SC. Yeah.
holy shit, And so the game starts playing, and the energy in that place was fucking crazy in
Mhm.
in a positive way, but also, the difference in cheering for your team, and then the other team is now on offense. And, Seattle actually ended up calling it the 11th man, that the
That's right.
stadium and fans get so fucking loud that the other team can't call its plays.
Mhm.
And it's with booze. It's like, and I'm going like, holy shit.
Yeah. Oh, and they are fanatic up there about
Nuts.
being that. Yeah.
Nuts. So
Yeah.
Well, it's
that I
like
guess
that
you get
you
a
become who you hang around, like we talked
There
about
we
on the
go.
inner
Yeah.
circle
yeah,
even last
the
night, where
environment.
it's like, once if you've been born and raised in that environment ever since you were like a kid and you've been taken to these games and screaming, you look to your left and right and your grandpa's doing it, your dad's doing it, your mom's doing it, and it's just
I
you're
I
now at
I
this
I go back
place
3
where
generations as a Trojan, and I am going to still be.
right,
Never mind the
exactly.
fact that,
the,
wait a minute, I went
the
to
first time,
UCLA because
The
yeah,
first car that they had, it automatically had the sticker ingrained on the back of the
oh,
glass. It
yeah.
was already there.
yeah.
So
When
they
when
had it,
uh,
I'm gonna have it.
when
Right.
Terry and I first seen how crazy it was, because everyone knows that. Again, this is just, I don't know this fact, but when you talk about football, there's nothing bigger than Texas and Southern states. It's just, you know, they have high school coliseums that are bigger than pro stadiums for
Mhm.
fucking high school. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Friday
And
Night
and
Lights.
shut the whole town down on Friday night. They make movies about it. They
Yep.
do they do everything. But when Terry and I moved to Georgia, and all of a sudden, the rivalry there is Georgia State and Georgia Tech. So there's college
University of
for
Georgia and Georgia
the
Tech.
college for all the blue collar people, and then
Mhm.
the elite college, which would be like UCLA, is that's the average people, and USC is the elite people. And it's like, so when Georgia Tech and Georgia played, it was like everywhere you went, fucking people had flags out their windows and had fucking bees on their face. And Mike
This
told
brings
me,
up like
Yeah.
a great subject that I think we should talk about, which is competition good? Like, do you guys, because like in general, whether we were talking about politics or whether we were talking about the things we've been talking about so far in this podcast, I feel like have kind of been wrapped around that whole competing aspect
yeah,
Oh
of
yeah.
great,
humanity.
great.
Right? So it's like where you guys were just talking about teams and the Rose Bowl and stuff, and all I'm thinking of is like we're really painting like areas where competition can be really good and areas where competition can be really bad. Like to the point
Wow.
where you're
Uh-huh.
talking about a stadium with both sides will be filled and everyone's screaming and having a blast and they're watching their teams compete and this is the way that that competition runs. And
Yeah,
then you can have it where we're talking about politics where they won't even communicate with each other. The competition is so bad that they won't even communicate and work together anymore because
Absolutely.
they're
and
competing
believe it or
against each other
not,
at such a level.
believe it or not, that's why there's always been a phenomenon. Again, we were talking about the environment and competition.
Mhm.
So you think of high school teams or college teams or pro teams, right? And you got these pro teams that are going against each other. But that's why people will never understand NASCAR. Okay, we've been talking about 100,000 fans that show up. And the Indianapolis 500, that turns into 500,000 people
Mhm.
live. It's 2.5 miles oval, and there's over 100,000 people in the fucking infield that's already been there partying for 2 days. They had their RV parked in there on Thursday. And so a whole weekend, they do 2 concerts in the infield. There's 100,000 people that are partying for a weekend. And then they always have the little race of the division underneath them that races on Saturday. And then the big boys come in on Sunday, right? And what's so crazy about that is you're watching 500,000 people and they're all cheering for 30 different cars.
Mhm.
See,
And like
so
every time they go by, they're cheering. They stand
Oh
up
yeah.
for
Yeah.
well,
hours. Like I remember when because I had only been to a NASCAR race that at least as an adult or old enough to realize what I'm doing. This one time, like we just decided to go. I don't know what it exactly was that pushed us to do it, but
Jimmy
we just
Jimmy Johnson was doing some big celebration
right.
thing, and I found out
So
about it.
so we ended up going to a NASCAR race, and so we get there at like 8 in the morning or something like that, right? 7 or 8. And you park the car because you have to buy parking that's designated for all these things, right? You park, and we're like walking towards this big track, right? And as you're walking, there's just trucks and trucks of people partying their asses off at 8 a.m.
Oh,
in
the
the morning,
tailgates. Yeah.
getting shit faced drunk before the gates
Uh-huh.
are even open. And you're
Yeah.
going, they've been waiting for this for months. This isn't just like
Yeah,
this
Oh,
is
and
exciting
it's
for
a big
them. So
event too. Yeah.
yeah,
I
the
can only
day
imagine Daytona 500, what that's like,
yeah,
you know?
NASCAR is so bizarre compared to other sports because, other sports have their world championship at the end of the season. Do you guys know that NASCAR starts their year with a Super Bowl? It
That's
is
right.
called the Daytona 500.
Yeah.
So that just happened a couple, like maybe not even a month ago. And,
Mhm.
the Super Bowl and all the other people that compete all know that you cannot. It's impossible. You would be an idiot to have the Super Bowl the same weekend as the Daytona 500. And
Oh, it's been that
The
way. Yeah.
Daytona 500 always happens right after the Super Bowl, usually within 2 weekends. And that's the big Super Bowl for them, but it's the beginning of the year. It's
Mhm.
like
The start of the season.
It's an
Yeah.
it's like
interesting way to do it. It's like how we intro some of our videos. It's like coming up next. It's like let's just give you the good
yeah,
shit at the beginning. Yeah, which is interesting because like I think a lot of things are kind of going that way, right? It's like how quickly can we get that feeling of excitement in you for something? Right?
Oh,
Like I saw it's funny, yesterday I linked you guys that 3 Body Problem trailer, right?
right.
Um and so I watched this trailer and immediately I finished the trailer and I'm on Amazon buying the books and they're like back here already. because I'm in my mind going like, anytime I watch something or see something or hear something, that immediately starts my mind starts running and asking questions.
Yeah.
I'm like, great, that's good stuff, right? And so like even that NASCAR event did that for me, because realize like I grew up watching my dad love and enjoy NASCAR, and my family too. Like my mom's side of the family, my extended family loves NASCAR as well. They're
Yep.
all mechanics and stuff like that as well. So NASCAR is huge in my family. Um but I'd never have had a connection to it myself because I'm a nerd. Like I connected with more of the nerdy shit in my dad's side, not the
Mhm.
mechanic side. That's more my younger brother, I would say, that's into more of the mechanic stuff.
Yeah,
But
but Matt, when you told me one time, you and Kyle are both explaining this to me, and I still love telling people this. I think it's fucking funny when I always talk about this. Is so I'm watching and learning, trying to be in interest as most as I can with Matt and Kyle as they're growing up, right? And I go in there and they're both in separate rooms laughing their asses off. I just think it's funny how much they laugh when they're doing what they're doing on computers. And I went in there and I go, what are you watching? They're going, well, I'm watching the streamer. And I'm going like, how many people are watching the streamer? And they usually would tell me, I don't know, 30, 40,000. How much
it's
is
like
the
70,
biggest one?
yeah.
70,000 people.
Mhm.
And I'm going, I watch and I'm going, I don't understand. You're laughing and watching a guy play a video game. All these people are watching this guy play a video game or watch a video on YouTube, and they go, "Yeah." And of course, Matt's always been the one that's challenging me. That's what I love about him, many things. And he said, "Oh," he goes, "So you don't understand why we watch other people watch video games?" And I go, "No, I don't get it." And he goes, "Oh, but you'll watch for 3 hours a bunch of guys driving a car around in circle." You know what I mean? And he said, "And the people that are the commentators, all they do is they're ex race car drivers talking about what's happening on a race car track."
Yeah. No, that's the thing, is like some of it's
Their
even
way
like
of
watching the
experiencing the same
professional.
thing, yeah.
Right. No, that's a huge part of competition too, right? Is it's like the
Right.
expert's opinion is valuable to a certain extent. But like the whole like switch of it is funny, because even as VR gets bigger and bigger, right? Like there's always that thing of, don't sit too close to the TV, you're gonna fry your retinas, or whatever
Oh
the
god.
things are.
Years
And
ago, yeah.
I think the millennial generation and Gen X kind of grew up in a place where it was like, listen, video games are going to rot your mind. Don't overplay video games. Don't do all this shit. And then it was like, then the adult or the parent would walk into the other room and watch Judge Judy for 4 hours straight. And
Yeah.
it's like it's always something generationally where we're like, I can't believe that this generation does this. And for me now,
But
that exists,
Wow.
right?
which is
I don't have no
competition.
desire to record myself dancing and post it on the internet, but it's pretty
Right.
popular now.
Yeah, no, you're
So
right,
But
Robert. It
it's
it is competition,
it
because
is
that's what
competition. Yeah,
I
right.
mean, here okay, you've got the male, you got the female, they put something together, your DNA, Robert, and Terry's DNA, even though they got together to create Matt, there's still 2 different beliefs, and you have your belief, Terry has her belief. So now Matt has both of you in him, and
fighting each other.
fighting each other, competing
Is that
against
what it's
each
been this
other.
whole time?
And what's
It's like, why
so
couldn't you
then
and mom agree more? What the hell?
yeah,
Just kidding.
exactly.
Because
And
that
they
would
say
be
opposites
boring.
attract too.
Right,
So
exactly.
so
We're
what
talking
happens
about we're talking about good competition.
right.
And
Yeah.
I just think that probably picking a side, regardless of what it is. Like why is there always the blue collar versus the white collar? Nowadays it'd be, the minimum wage person against the elite person, the educated against the non-educated. It's like
Yeah.
it is really interesting that maybe a part of significance, approval, whatever Summit Connection, whatever we're looking for. It just is a lot funner to do this in a um, that makes you feel alive, that you're talking about something that a lot of other cheeseheads are talking about. If you guys don't know, Green Bay Packers, they wear these big hunks of cheese on their face.
Oh, really?
Right. Oh
Yeah,
yeah. Oh, big
and,
hat.
and
Yeah.
go out in zero weather, below zero weather, with no shirts on, and painting themselves, cheese color and green color.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I've never been. I
And
mean,
then you have the stadiums that are fully enclosed. So that's the only outdoor stadium that has negative degree temperature most of the, as the winter season
Yeah,
comes around. And you wonder like how. And not only that, that whole team is even uh owned by the community.
yeah.
How do they get around and
They
doing
they
things?
put up
That's
the
because they've
shares of
come together.
stock.
Yes.
Those people that have season tickets there for life, and they get passed to their children and their grandchildren,
Oh, absolutely.
actually own stock in the Green Bay Packers. It's like
And
you might be fighting someone that's a weekend warrior. You know what I mean?
oh yeah. And they are very rabid about it, and yet, you
Ah,
go to a stadium, these beautiful stadiums, you just had the Las Vegas Raiders with their brand new state-of-the-art stadium, not taking away from LA because LA has a beautiful new state-of-the-art stadium, but
yeah,
Raiders is newer. Yes,
yeah,
I'm a Rams fan, so sorry, guys. But, these beautiful stadiums, and it's like, the Packers are gonna sit there and go, yeah, you're coming into our house. You're gonna
yeah.
play. You're gonna be here. You
In
gotta
the
in the
frozen tundra, them in Chicago, man.
exactly.
It's like,
Oh, that's
yeah.
like,
right. Or
hey,
Minnesota. Well,
you
no, Minnesota's got an
I
indoor
mean, they
stadium.
say this, I
Yeah.
know we're this goes public, but it's like, listen, you are a pussy if you practice in Florida. It's like, what are you talking about? You got controls on your enclosed, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
This was the first year, believe it or not, wasn't it, the Buffalo Bills, their outside stadium? This was the first year that they had to postpone a game
Oh,
because there
because of
was
the
too
weather.
much snow in the stadium,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they had to play a team, I forget what it was, wasn't it like the Jaguars or something, or the Ravens? That
Something like
but
that.
I
But
believe
they
it
had to
was
go
a
to a whole totally different stadium because of it.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the weather has been like crazy this year too.
yeah,
So, especially
we're
out here in
talking about
California, it's like
yeah,
nuts.
'cause we always hear that, what is the commonality regardless of how you're brought up, that, there's always these siblings that for whatever reason, you gotta just beat them at all costs.
Well, I mean, that's
Siblings
one of those
or other
ones, huh?
people.
Like I'm one of those people that had the exact same thing as you, Dad. I got nothing but brothers. I got 2 brothers, so it's just all dudes, you know what I mean? And so growing up with just brothers, like you end up still to this day, I'll catch my brothers like saying competitive shit to me just to get a rise out of me, right? And it's interesting because I know I do it too, like it's just one of those things where you're like, you know,
I think that's
so I
inherent in any family with
well,
siblings.
it especially if you knew us, right?
Okay.
Like the way the Hollis family is like joking about shit is just part of who we are. Like that's just not
Um,
But I
it's
think that's
not
inherent in
I
any
abnormal.
love
It
it.
would be weird if it didn't exist, is what I'm
yeah.
saying.
I
I
mean,
love it.
I did that with my brother and sister too. It's the one-upsmanship. Even though, yes, you are a family unit,
But
there's
who is
always still
who is your mother's favorite, though?
you know what? I don't even look at that. Okay, that's me. Now, I can say probably that my brother got more favors and got more things, because
But
he's
was
the
that
youngest.
but was that your perspective?
There's the word.
Yeah, I was gonna say because
There's the word, is the
my perspective
perspective.
is that like out of the 3 kids that my dad has, I'd be like Kyle, the youngest, has probably given him the least him and my mom the least problems out of any of the 3 of us. So it's like, you know what I mean?
Well,
Okay, and in that
he
regard, Matt, would you say that you've taken on more of your dad or your mom?
My dad probably. Like I think in certain aspects of my life, I'm so much like my mom.
I see a lot of Terry and Matt.
Of
I
course,
was gonna
I'm
say, this is
very
this is an interesting perspective because,
yeah.
okay, being the outsider to this
Here's a
trying
good
threesome
question.
here.
Which parts of me do you guys I'll ask you guys. What parts of me do you think are more like her and more like you, Dad? What do you think?
Well, one of the things is the rebellious nature that you have. Your father
Yeah.
might be competitive, but I'm the guy that you didn't see coming.
Mhm.
I'm not controversial.
Controversial?
Yeah, yeah. My competitive state is more of
You don't
in
wanna shake the beehive up just to see if there's bees in there, right?
yeah. I'm the kind of guy that all of a sudden you see all of a sudden they're giving away the trophies and
Yeah.
they're going, I didn't even know he was doing anything.
Mhm.
I'm the guy, the sleeper. I'm the guy that didn't have the nice paint job on my car and but I would kick your ass on the racetrack. And I
Yeah.
love that. I love being that way. Where the part that you get from your mom is exactly what you said about the beehive. It's like it's like my wife, and I love her for this, will make a smart ass comment that has nothing to do with the subject that you're talking about just to fucking do it. But she's not doing it to irritate you. It's just the way her mind works. So in
That's
the middle
how
of
she
you saying something,
communicates.
you go, one of the things I like about my brother, and she would go, that you love taking showers with him. What are you saying right now? And she's just giggling, and it wasn't thought out. It wasn't malicious.
No, that's what's so interesting about it is like
She'll freeze you because it's just a comment.
Right.
yeah,
It's
it's
just a comment.
so you're saying that
And
I say random things like showering with my brother or something like that? No, just kidding.
no, man,
No,
you
no.
you and there should be a better word for this. So maybe we
Mhm.
come up with it right now. It'd be
Sure.
perfect. But the deal is wow, you're such a smart ass.
Yes.
You know what I
That
mean?
okay, there's the word for it
Mhm.
because I have been a smart ass through my life, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and
And who brought
and
that on?
oh, probably. Yeah. I think that if you knew my mom's dad, my grandfather, you'd know where she got it from too. And it's just like I
And I
could
don't
see
mean
that
that to
direct
be in a
connection.
negative way. It's
No,
just
it's
part of
good.
no,
that
it's
personality that
not.
But that's the
you
thing
have
is my
versus like
mom is
what
one of
Junior
those.
has versus what Kyle has.
Yeah, and I've heard this about myself from time to time, and I get pieces of this from my dad as well. But it's like my mom is one of those people where if you're in a space with her, you know how she thinks and you're comfortable because
Right.
Yeah,
she's not anything but who she is.
yeah,
And my grandfather was the same way,
yeah.
where like if he was in a situation, it was he was showing up as Sam every time he showed up,
Yeah.
Mhm.
right? And I'd say certain bits of me that I get from my dad is I've watched my dad go from exhausted, no energy to 1,000% when he needs to. And I've got that capability too, I think, from him. Because when my mom's like, this is bullshit, I don't want to do this anymore. It's not that she won't do it, but she doesn't put up with bullshit in the way me and my dad will put up with bullshit.
No, she
Kyle's
there's
with
like
Kyle
grandpa.
doesn't put up with bullshit either, like mom.
Yeah, yeah.
Her and him are that way.
Right.
Sam, my father-in-law, one time we came to his house and he's got this tree out front. And it was sort of like right now at this time, winter's closing off. So there's no trees. I mean, no leaves or anything on the trees.
Mhm.
And so Sam went out and basically put an empty beer can on every branch of that tree. Okay.
The
And
end of every or just
yeah,
on it.
Right.
and so when you pulled up, you see this
Okay.
tree and it's got like 40 beer cans in it. And he's going, and I go, why'd you do that? And he says, when it's not so cold out, this is when the Jehovah Witnesses and the Mormons start coming.
So he's just showing them ahead of time to skip the house because there's beer cans all over.
Okay, here's one other funny one about Sam. I'm watching him giggling while he's going through his mail. And I'm doing, what are you doing? And he goes, hey, you ever get junk mail where people send you shit? And then they also put a self-addressed envelope in there. And I said, yeah. He goes, well, I mail that shit back to them. I just take every bit of it, tear it very in pieces, put it in their self-addressed envelope, and I mail it back to them.
It's like I never remember. I didn't know my grandfather because he retired in his 50s. I never knew my grandfather being in like like he worked on his property at a garden, all different kinds of things. He was like a cowboy type person, but I never knew him as like someone that worked a job, right? Because I had just known him in my upbringing being retired. So anytime I was hanging out with him, he had like all the free time in the world to hang out.
Yeah.
So because of that, I think he came up with a lot of shit to entertain himself. Sometimes that stuff was annoying my grandma.
Totally.
And that's
Yeah.
I can tell you that the beer cans on the tree thing, definitely she's not okay with that,
No,
probably.
no, I would be sitting with him in the other room. And of course, all the women go in this is traditional, but the women are all in the kitchen, right? And they're sitting around having a glass of wine and cooking whatever. And he would just look at me and get my attention and then smile. And then he would change the channel to a Spanish channel and he would just keep raising the volume. And he'd just keep doing that. And then all of a sudden, it's like it gets silent all the way in the kitchen. It gets silent. And Monine would go, Sam.
His
And
wife,
he
yeah,
just
my
goes,
grandma.
Yeah.
yeah. And he just would turn it down and smile and then go back to another channel. And I'm going like,
He loved getting a rise out of my grandma, but he would make her laugh like no other person could, you know?
yeah,
What's so
yeah. And
interesting is like I talked to my grandma today and she was saying that today is the day that he passed those years ago. This is
Mm.
the anniversary of that. And I'm like, man, what a day to be thinking about him. You know, what a
yeah.
great day to
Yeah.
think of all
Oh,
the positive stuff about him. So I'm
totally.
glad he
He was,
came up because
yeah, he was really the only really good father figure that I've had, and he's just one of those guys. And Matt, why you never remember him at a job is because unfortunately, he had a Teamster member, the union. He worked for a company called it was a giant company that you guys would know.
it's
That's
a trucking
for truck
company. Hold on one
Mag.
consolidate
second. Yeah, hold on.
consolidated freight.
Oh, Consolidated. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a is that his retirement clock?
This is his retirement clock
Yep.
Wow.
Look at that. Oh,
for that
wow.
day. Doesn't
Yeah.
work, but I
I
could
was gonna
fix
say
it.
it's yeah, if you see it, it's the time is not right
I
based
didn't
on
know
what
It's
you
time it
had
is
it's
that,
now.
Matt.
Hamilton, and it says in recognition for 15 years of service on the top
Wow.
That's
for
cool.
CF.
So they had a big union meeting at this big facility in Billings that he worked at. And he would be the one that when the trucks pulled in, the trucker would go log out, do whatever, and then he would fuel the truck, make sure the maintenance was done, and then hook it up to a set of trailers, making it available, for the other truckers. So, he was like, I don't know, like a networker. Um, and he was walking out, and they had one of the team leaders, the guy that actually run the truck union, um, came out and got in his car, and he was drunk, and he backed over my father-in-law.
I
Oh,
do know
wow.
that happened. Yeah.
Yeah. And so really, really, really messed his legs and his back up really, really, really bad. And so yeah, he had to retire and go into disability and fight them for lawsuits and all this other stuff. So, it was So that's why you always remember him being around. The
Yeah.
clock should say 40 years,
Hmm.
not
Because he probably
15.
would have lasted that long.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. You would have
No,
to.
he worked every day, even when he had his shit messed up. Like he's the most I mean, just an active dude. Him and my grandma both are like
Yeah.
still. My grandma's in her 80s. She still mows her own lawn. So
Yep.
Nice.
yeah. So lives on her own. But
Mhm.
it's really, really interesting because you can kind of see those correlations where it's like the way that he is, the way mom is, and then the way that me and Kyle
Oh,
are,
we always, I mean, that's the
And
one thing about, when you have children, you carry your DNA, your experiences, your what you've gone through.
yeah.
I mean, we all have that in some way. Sometimes people have a temper. Well, where do you get that temper from? Well, it was definitely not my side of the family. It was must have been their side of the family.
You're like, "Calm down, you have a temper, just calm
Hey,
down for a
didn't
Yeah,
minute."
we didn't we just go didn't we just drop back into competition again? It's
there
like
we are. Yeah.
But that's the
you
thing
got
though, it's
you
like
got
you
a
will have
husband and
parents,
wife, and
right?
it's like, listen, the misfits are on that side of the family.
Right.
Right. Never thinking that you both created this little human that is now got traits from you and traits from you together.
See, I've heard too, Dad, that it's like and I know you'll laugh and agree with this, but it's like when you have children, they say, of course, because your children are gonna have bits and pieces of you, that they're going to force you to tackle the negative parts of yourself too, because they'll have those as well.
That
And
makes
what's so
sense.
Wow.
interesting is as I was growing up, I can never really in my mind ever remember my older brother who's 10 years older than me and my younger brother who's 18 months younger than me ever having a full-on fight debate with my dad. The only person that would sit there and do that with you was me.
Yeah.
And it just was part of our like our family, our wives or the other people, because they're not interested. They would just get up and leave us in a room to debate
Yeah.
politics, all these different things on our own, because that was our personality to just keep doing it. And an hour, 2 hours would go by and we'd still be doing it. Right. And
And for you guys, it would be as if it was no time passed at all, and for
no,
them, it's like, "God, when are these guys
they're
gonna get
like,
finished?"
my mom would get upset because she'd come in, and eventually Hannah, when I got married, would get upset too, because they come in and they'd see us debating each other and think that we were like fighting each other. We're not
Yeah.
fighting each other. We were debating each
Yeah.
other, and we both got
Me
some.
and
I get
Matt
that
me
so
and
much
Matt
from
were
you, and
always
Kyle and
yeah.
Doris don't seem to have that. They don't
No.
debate with me at all.
No.
So
It's yeah, the debating going back with me and Matt and always would be, and we even could sense when it went too far. So me and him would be like,
right,
really passionate about whatever we were talking about and believing in. And we could immediately tell that, that was below the belt.
right.
Uh-huh.
And we were
That's
going like, wait a minute, what are we doing this for again? You know what I mean? And it's like,
yeah.
You
That's
but
the
crossed
thing that
that
I've learned.
line that of
Right.
and that's what but you guys realized that.
Well, I think we
You
had to come to it. It wasn't.
yeah,
I think for
I seen
me,
Craig bringing this back to a point that
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Yeah.
go ahead, Craig. Go ahead.
No, you kind of brought it up. It's like, okay, you guys know the buttons to push, but you can, and
Yeah.
this is okay if we want to bring back in government, you knew where to go. You you either compromised on saying, okay, yes, this, yes, that, so you agreed. But if you cross the line and you got upset, then it's like, nope, we're going
Now
this
it's
way.
now it's division.
Now
Now
it's
it's division,
division.
right?
There's
And,
compromise,
and
there's division,
yeah,
there's
Mhm.
acceptance. Compromise is in a sense acceptance, but it's okay, a little bit of you, a little bit of me, we come together and we move forward.
right.
Yeah, I think I
Whereas
And
lacked
now,
compromise skills for a long time.
yeah, I
I
remember
when I
Matt.
look back, I think a lot of the debates that me and you had, Dad, were so me. It's so funny because looking back at it now, being in the place that I'm in and the relationship me and you have, it's like looking back at it now, I'm like, man, I am going to have one of those kids. Exactly the same. I'm gonna be like, no, hey, like, check this out. Like, this might be the way that it is, and he's just gonna fight. He or she's just gonna fight me on
Yeah.
it, like every
And
step
then
of the way,
then you're gonna look back and you're gonna say
and laugh.
and
Yeah,
laugh because it's like, "Oh god, that's my mom.
I'm
Oh
already
no, that's
laughing
my
now
dad."
because when I look back at myself, then I've shared this on like things. It's like I almost wanted to be like a me and my dad both sometimes play the contrarian where we'll like get each other to talk about a subject that we maybe don't side with, but like we're just hearing each
Right.
other out on what we think.
Right.
Um, and I would just debate topics that I didn't even really care about just because I love debating so much.
Yeah.
And it's like it took me a while of growing up to realize that I was like wasting my time debating shit I don't care about. Like it just, you know what I mean? Like I don't. How many times am I going to debate infrastructure of the United States? Like I'm a
Yeah.
dude that
Oh,
works
yeah.
creative shit. Like I don't have any desire to work in the infrastructure of the United States. I shouldn't be speaking on it at all. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I have no
And
clue what that is. So
and that would be a trait that you didn't get from your mom, right?
yeah.
Because my wife is not interested in any way, shape, or form about discussing or talking about things that she doesn't give a shit about.
She has her
She'll
beliefs
hear
on
you
what she
out.
knows, and that's
Yeah.
that.
I've
Yeah,
taken my
but
mom out to lunch before, and she just sat there and, like, listened to me ramble about a bunch of shit, and she's just the nicest listener, right? And she what's so
well,
great is that it's just
I trained her for you.
well, I mean,
I'm
it's
serious. That incredible woman has been my number one fan forever, and
yeah.
she's heard me talk about many subjects probably over a million times in 40 years. And she's just attentive, and she's the best cheerleader, and
Right.
Mhm.
yeah. But if you're talking about nonsense stuff, she can tell when I'm talking about my imagination, where we're going, what I'm going to do for her and the family. And she's like the best fan ever. If I'm talking about nonsense, that's when she'll say those, you know, statements in the middle of what I'm talking about that just has nothing to do with anything.
Just to
Yeah,
derail what it's like,
It
please
just
get
and
off of
she's
totally
this
calling
just
she's
without
saying
me having to
bullshit
tell you.
even though she's doing it nicely and
But the
not
thing
saying it
is that
directly to
we
your
do that.
face. Huh?
When we're teaching people or when we're sharing, right? What is one of the things that you do? It's like someone asks a question that you're not interested in or makes no sense, and then you're like the circumference of a sperm. You go to that
Exactly.
because
Yeah,
you're
that's
like,
right, Robert.
what you're asking me matters zero to what I care about. So like, why are you sharing this with me, right? Takes you a while to realize that too. Like, still, I catch
Yeah.
myself all the time. I was sitting here watching the State of the Union going like I'm sitting here with my headphones on, or not my headphones on, it's on, and Hannah's over here playing games. And I'm just like rambling about the State of the Union thing, right? Just like
Mhm.
saying shit.
You're talking back to the TV, which can't really
Which
respond
now I'm
back to
32,
you.
so now it's like all of a sudden I'm doing this. Like I'm talking
Yeah.
back to the TV now. But
well, and donating
well,
money to you.
we're gonna get there, right?
There are people that are already doing that. What
Hey,
was that one thing that
hey,
you shared, Matt?
If Joe
You're
Rogan
right,
can
yeah.
get if Joe Rogan can get 11 million people to watch his podcast, and he's talking about, I am positive that a gorilla can kick an ass on a bear.
Well, what's
I'm
so
just
crazy is there's like this next step past Joe Rogan that I'm watching and realizing, and it's that way with Kyle, right? Like when you're saying Kyle watches streams and stuff, and I do too, but not as much, at least not Twitch, right? And I'm watching and seeing like there's people like Hassan and other streamers that 40,000 people watch them a day, and they're streaming for like 10, 12 hours a day. And they're the end, beginning, and middle of where everybody young is getting their political advice from now. Like these people have so much influence that
wow.
if they go,
More than
hey,
Taylor
go bump.
Swift?
No, probably not. I mean, but let's think about it this way though. There's a difference
I
in
was
followings
joking.
between I know, but there's a difference between like a militant following and a non-militant following.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Right? So you'd say that the people that follow Trump are militant, right? Like they're willing to go to bat for what they believe in with him. And
Right.
I'd say some of these political people that are on Twitch have the exact same following, where
No
like if
doubt.
someone makes a hit piece on them, that article or that video is bombarded and you can't even read a positive comment about the article or the video. It's
Yeah.
just
When
all, I can't believe you do this. You're taking things out of context, all of these things.
when
And
I
that person
heard
won't even
that,
get to write an article anymore. They'll get
yeah,
fired, right? It's
yeah.
Oh,
insane.
yeah.
When Tucker
Tucker
Carlson,
Carlson.
Yeah.
Tucker
I
Carlson. Yeah.
never watched him. I don't know anything about him, but it's when the Ukraine war started, he wanted to go to Russia and interview Putin. And who knows the truth, right? I'm the guy that says I'm listening to stuff and it's how do you know that? It's like come
Yeah.
on. But
Right.
he said that the government of the United States did everything in their power to stop him from going there. So that's why it's taken so long. But he shows up and interviews Putin, and there's this whole group of people, I guess, that I didn't know out there, and we're talking about competition. I
Hmm.
had no idea there's a whole group of people that are Putin lovers.
Yeah. Big in the United States too.
And I'm going like, what? I I don't need to know nothing
If
about
you,
Putin to go, hey, you start launching missiles into a country that can't defend itself, there's something wrong with you. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
no, of
It,
course, it's evil. The
yeah,
things he's done to his
right.
own people are evil. The
Oh
things he
yeah.
does, you know, in general. I think what's so interesting about it is that there's this whole entire movement of young people going on. And I brought up Hassan, right? That are very pro communism. Like there's this whole younger pro communistic movement happening in the United States now, which is interesting because I think I'm just, even though Hassan is my age, his following is all younger, right? And that's what I
Right,
mean by like, I start streaming, I'm influencing the next group of young people by doing that,
right.
right?
Hmm.
And that's what he's doing every single day. He's getting on and
Yeah, because
going,
your people your age are not gonna watch you because they're too competitive.
well, maybe they're in a position that I'm in where like I get a majority of my information from YouTube and shit like that,
Yeah,
right? I'm the YouTube generation. But the generation mine and a little bit younger is more involved with live streaming and Twitch, and I've seen like the amount of views and stuff that someone like Hassan will get is just as much as some of these other big political figures on the other side.
oh, yeah.
And so to say Alex Jones doesn't have an influence would be to say that Hassan doesn't have an influence, because when all the Palestinian stuff was going on with Israel and Palestine,
Still
and
is, but yeah.
still is, of course, with Hamas,
And the fact that we
Hassan
had
is,
some of this stuff here in the US, I just wanna
yes,
in context, just in context.
no, yeah, of
The
course,
the whole thing with the universities, and now they're
yes,
saying, that now people are assuming that this new generation of students are pro-Palestinian and they're,
mhm,
anti-Israel. It's just crazy.
Yeah.
yeah. Well, you
Anyways,
know, like,
continue. I just wanted to bring
yeah,
it up for context
no,
here
thank
because
you for
I
doing
know
that.
where you're headed. I just want you to, I want everybody else
Sometimes
to.
I forget. Yeah, sometimes, well, this is one of my things, and I appreciate you bringing that stuff up because sometimes I forget that this isn't like common knowledge, right? Like that
Mm,
people aren't
Right.
always up, they're not on the internet like I am all the time.
Yeah,
So when you,
I Googled really quick, Carlson interviewing Putin got 125 million views.
how
And
many of that
so,
were US views?
I don't know.
yeah,
Well, yeah, but my point being is that, who was the guy that was so big before Carlson
Bill
on
Pierce
Fox?
O'Reilly.
Pierce Morgan?
Bill O'Reilly.
Bill
And
O'Reilly.
yeah,
Okay.
and both of them has said the amount of money that they're making after they left Fox is it's not even in the
Well, and they have
ballpark.
more influence. They can't be canceled anymore. There's no,
Right.
okay, you said this or that, so now you can have Tucker Carlson having on guys that said that they had sex with Obama. You know what I mean? Like, or just some random thing mixed in with interviews with world dictators. You know what I mean? Which is
Mhm.
interesting because it's
And
they're he's realizing that the model that worked for Joe Rogan is exactly that, is that you
Yeah.
just throw shit against the wall and see what sticks, you know what I mean? And like it's some people would say, okay, if you have a platform, right? And this has been brought up with Hassan and other popular streamers and people. If you have a platform, then you have a responsibility to make sure that you're saying factual information. They don't do that anymore. No one
Yeah.
cares about
No,
that anymore, including
it used
Hassan.
to be that way.
So I remember one
Yeah.
of the moments I used to watch Hassan a lot, but one of the moments where I took a step back and went like, what's going on here? And it's interesting because one day I might talk to him.
Do
Uh
it.
but what's so interesting, because I'd love to hear, but he said he did an interview with Pierce Morgan, right? And he was saying this was like right after that hospital had been bombed and they thought Israel had done it in
Oh, yeah, recently. Yeah,
Gaza, right?
right.
And so he was like, absolutely, Israel did it. Of course, I wouldn't believe anyone saying that that wasn't the case. And I'm like, his following is going to hear this, and regardless of what they say, they're going to think that. And that's the truth. So that's how propaganda starts. Even if it were
Yeah.
to come
Right.
out and they go, it wasn't, just like Alex Jones is exactly the same thing in a different space where you're going, oh, yeah, you know, there's things going on in this grove and there's all these stuff happening, and people believe that these things are happening
Yeah. That
And then
that
look
without,
at
that
what happened
everyone that
in
was
the I'm
Sandy
sorry, I was
Hook.
gonna say well, I was gonna not just Sandy Hook, but
oh,
look what
Sandy Hook.
happened
Yeah.
last night at the in the, presidential State of the Union where, Biden called out the Republicans for
And the
on the
Supreme
cer
Court.
and the Supreme Court, exactly. I mean, and it's like he said, "It's in the document," or other things that, with fact. Who's right? I mean,
Yeah. I
it's
Donald
mean,
it's it's all
Donald
perspective.
Donald Trump when he said he was a psycho.
well, that's the thing, right? Is like the baseline of facts has now
I'm
changed
joking. Don't
Exactly.
don't send me
because
emails.
yeah, right. You can't trust. The thing is if you this is one of the like the tools of fascism and in general, right? But you get people to distrust the people in the government that they're telling you the factual information, and if you can
Or
do
the other
that,
side, whatever that is.
yes, yeah, you can then uproot no matter what the facts are, because the baseline for facts is now what you say as a dictator. So
Yeah.
now you're saying this is this way. Don't believe them, because they would only make up things to make you believe them. They're not making up,
Right.
this isn't the truth. This is stuff they're making up to get you to get on their side.
And
So
how
then
many
they have
times do you
you.
have to say that, which is being brought up, if you keep exactly, Robert, if you keep saying it over
Yeah.
and over and over and over and over
Clearly it doesn't
again.
matter. It doesn't matter. Like in modern day, that aspect of society, like we're talking about right now, watching the State of the Union with Joe Biden, a president that I would say has been decent. Like obviously, it's just it is what it is.
Exactly.
Um, but the person that he's running against is on trial for like all of this shit, regardless if he gets convicted or not, right?
Yeah.
Um, we have a
I don't know of a president that's had 91 indictments or whatever the fucking number is.
Yeah.
I'm
It's
not
been
a
a lot for sure.
Yeah.
But like I said, going back to facts, everybody on the other side would say that they're going after him to stifle his chances of winning because they know that he'll
yeah.
win. And that's working. What he's saying is working, even
Yeah.
though that might
I
not
just
be
watched
the
a
facts,
podcast.
right?
I just watched a podcast recently. I don't know who the guy was, but the concept was, when Andrew Tate and a bunch of guys jumped on this toxic male masculinity, and they were talking about the red pill thing, right?
Oh yeah.
And of course I've never ever watched anything that but they were talking about that there just becomes these talking points of a subject that they go, people don't realize, just like everything else. It's like I used to watch a certain show. I don't watch the show anymore. It's like they were just talking about how fast human beings get bored. That a subject, a new awareness, a new thought comes out, and then everyone's talking about the points of it, and then just becomes too blah. It's like, for me personally, what's checked me out of politics is that one, you no longer have to answer a question.
It's
Mhm.
true.
And two, whatever question you ask, this is my cue to start rattling off the PowerPoint bullets of whatever I'm supposed to say that's supposed to be trendy at this time. And so I think that's why there's such a boredom with people in politics today, because it'd be neat if you could reach out to somebody and say, are you telling me that I'm not paying more money at the grocery store? Is that what you're trying to tell
Right.
me?
Right.
That I'm spending less at the grocery store? And it's like, well, that's not our fault. This is stuff left over by the last president. And I'm not even talking about future right now, present. When that's when I started checking out of the politics, around, Reagan, and then, Clinton, and then, going through those presidents, because it didn't make a difference when Obama got in office, which I voted for,
Mhm.
that he was the first person that I've seen in my generation that really gave me hope. I mean,
Yeah.
and
That first run, I mean,
he comes
yeah.
out with these 71 things that he's going to do. And then all of a sudden he gets in office, and now he comes to the realization that the only reason that the Congress and Senate there is just to oppose everything that he wanted to make a promise. Because their goal is, if we can stop Obama from making any of these promises happening, then these are going to be the points that we're going to run against him to get our people back in power.
Gee, where recently have we seen that tactic being done? The
Well, I mean, it
border, the you
yeah,
the
it goes
it
both ways too,
and
because
it
It's
was so brought
crazy.
out last
I was
night that it was
sitting, yeah.
yeah, it was so
Well, I was
brought
gonna
out last
say,
night right in front of everybody.
right.
It's like, here we've got a compromise between the left and the right on a border issue that everybody is okay, they're finally, okay,
Yeah.
talking about.
At least they're at the table,
After
right?
after
At least
40 years.
they were at the table. And then you
Yeah.
have this guy who throws this monkey wrench in and says, "No, you're if you're part of my team, I'm gonna say, no, you're not gonna do that because I want that as a talking point."
Yeah.
What's wrong with coming together? Because as Biden said it last night, why can't we just fix the freaking thing?
It's like what Matt said. It's all
Yeah.
about competition. I have to admit that the talking points that I've been using for the last 3.5 years, they would no longer be relevant if we could actually fix something.
Imagine spending
Oh,
your whole
yeah. Oh,
career
God forbid we fix something and bring it
running on
together.
one fucking thing, whole career, 40 years, 30 years, running on one issue, not only not solving the issue, but then watching it get reversed and then bringing it up that you're going to solve it again when it's fixed.
Yeah.
Cuz the younger generation is looking at the Democratic Party and going, you guys had fucking decades to codify Roe v. Wade. You didn't. You had the political majority to do it. There's been times that that's been given to you and you didn't do it. So there's hate for the Republican Party for sure for going after
Oh,
abortion rights. But on top of that, they hate the Democrats too because the Democrats only use abortion as a talking point to get them to vote.
mhm,
They don't actually have any desire to make it permanent. They just want it
Right.
to be in a place where, similar with guns. I feel like Republicans do the same thing but with guns. Is it's
Yeah. We
like Democrats have
we talk
no
about
desire to outlaw guns,
yeah.
even though he brought it up last night. Because if they
Yep.
did, they'd push legislation and push it in a
Mm.
direction to make it happen more. They come to a middle ground, but they'd never bring up middle ground points because they don't want it to happen. So it's always, we're going to ban all assault weapons, not let's come to a compromise between the two and figure out what the best is so this doesn't happen
exactly,
anymore.
which is what it
It's
should be,
It's
but it
sad.
theoretically.
won't. And that's why
Yeah,
Biden last night said the exact same thing I've been hearing them say my whole life is we're going to ban assault weapons or we're going to do this. We're going to ban magazines. We're going to do all these things. And every time I hear those talking points, I looked at Hannah cuz Hannah's got an aunt that is pro gun. She's from Florida, grew up with guns. I would say she's more in the middle, even more liberal. But she's so pro gun that she hates hearing any of those types of things. And she's in
Right.
communities that hate those types of things and stuff as well. So I'm rolling my eyes laughing with Hannah because I'm like, the moment he said that, I'm like, Kathy's rolling in her chair right now laughing,
Yeah.
going,
We
this
brought
bastard.
up, I know we brought up on another podcast. Again, this is an easy subject to talk about how dysfunctional, a lot of world's governments are. But, we talked about this 30-30-30. And it
Right.
came up in a poll just recently again about guns. And, when I think it was 78% of the people in America say we got to do something to stop these rifles from getting in the hands of people that have mental illness. And so when that large of a group of people in the United States are telling the people that they voted for that represent them in the government that this is an issue we all agree with, and they do nothing. I heard a recent thing that was really funny as a guy said, at least NASCAR is open. So when the guy wins the race and you walk up to him and go, congratulations on winning the race. And he goes, well, I first like to thank, God, and I'd like to thank the owner of the car. And I'd like to thank the crew chief and my team. I'd love to thank my family. And oh, by the way, I want to thank Pennzoil, Gecko and
Powerade.
Powerade,
It's like
Prime,
Talladega Nights where he's
Yeah.
praying and he's like,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
also
yeah.
want you to bless Powerade and their Mystic Blueberry flavor that's coming out.
and the guy said it should be a law that every politician has to wear patches on his suit.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
That'd be
And
funny.
it's like so when you're talking to him and you go, "Oh, you got $3 million from the NRA? Uh, wait a minute, you're a Democrat?" It's like, what the hell? It's like, you're taking sponsor money from the right
Yeah.
side.
So
Yeah.
a majority of them are older, we would say, in years,
Yeah.
right? They're not having kids anytime soon.
Nope.
Never, right? That's already done with for them. So
Yeah.
they're looking at certain situations like abortion with like a lens of it not has nothing to do with
Doesn't
them,
affect
right?
Not
me.
my problem.
Yep.
Not my
And that's the
problem.
difficult part is that it's like the as the age of humanity has grown, the age of the people that are representing governments has grown older, right? So now the presidents are in their 70s instead of in their 40s and 50s when they become president, right? And or even 60s would be great. I'm asking that now.
Right.
I'll be like, I'll take that. Because you guys are in touch way more than someone that I've met that's 70, 80 years old. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like there's a significant difference there.
But I
But
know a
it's
bunch
like,
of people my age that
right.
they're
Well, I know a
so out
bunch of
of
people
touch.
my age that are out of
They're
touch
they're
Oh,
as well.
yeah.
there's just as many people I feel, Matt, my age and older, that are way, 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 way more out of touch than even you and the younger group.
Well, yeah, it's the lead.
Because they're always it was so funny. I heard this recently from a guy is he goes, if the group of people that you hang around are always talking about the past, you'll continue to stay there.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
true.
absolutely.
And so, every friend that I know from my past, is not only what's the word I'm saying? They're always talking about the past and what we did in the past, but they're also complaining about everything that the government is doing. So it's weird that that group of people look at the world every single day getting worse. And
Sure.
they just want to go back to the glory days. Remember glory days,
Yeah, we
when
can't.
Right.
it was 100 degrees out and someone built a metal slide. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
Jesus.
Yeah.
And
And
then
we
and
were
the nails
determined to
weren't
go
fully
down.
down.
Yeah.
and
Weren't
they
fully
and they
bolted
painted
in.
it and they painted it with lead paint. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
It's
Well, that's
like,
what I
what
was
the
joking about.
hell,
Every
man?
generation has
Okay.
their shit,
Roadrunner
right?
and Wile E. Coyote cartoons. I
Yeah.
mean, my gosh, it's like, you couldn't make those today.
No.
There would be no way because the suspension of belief has become so much ingrained in the newer generations that, you know, if they think that, oh yeah, the coyote runs into a cliff or falls off a cliff, and you know, looks up and it's like, and he comes back in the next scene. Yeah, I
Mhm.
could go ahead and do that. Wrong
Right.
consequences. Yeah,
It's so
the
funny. I was gonna
suspense
say
of
that it's just
disbelief.
not I was gonna say it's not violent enough. They'd have to like decapitate one of them or
Yeah,
something like
well,
that for
okay,
the kids to watch it
maybe in your
nowadays.
horror movies now,
No,
because
I'm
you
saying like the younger generation is
oh, that's
desensitized to
true.
violence because we grew up with a different version of it than you guys did,
You grew
right?
up with
Like,
first person shooter.
well, not only that, unfortunately, but there's like you know, you could say all that you wanna say about like the different versions of the way society works now, and some people are like, you know, there's more sex and violence and everything now than there used to be, and therefore that's desensitized us to it.
Oh yeah.
Um, you know, some of my favorite movies are from the 70s, and if you've watched those movies, you disagree with the desensitization of the violence
True.
because it's not
Yeah.
like that didn't exist in film back then. If anything, there we went through a back and forth where now we're getting to a place where we can do another film like Taxi Driver, and we went through a place where that didn't exist.
And what's Taxi
So,
Driver gonna be today versus what it would have been back then? It would take the R rating to a
Uber
whole
driver.
new level.
yeah,
Yeah.
Uber
Uber
driver, not
driver,
Over yeah.
Taxi Driver.
Okay, fine, yeah. People are going, "Taxi? What's that?" "Uber." "Oh,
Right,
yeah, okay."
exactly. I remember, hey, listen, those things happen like so consistently now, like over the months and over the years that like it's so insane that I can remember the first time that I got in an Uber. I can remember the first time I stayed in an Airbnb and all these things and how common those are now.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
think about that with technology that like if it's anything like talking going back to competition a little bit is that
Yeah,
I I feel like humanity has become so much more accepting of change because it's so hard to stay in the past. So even when you
yeah.
bring up, "Hey, I want to go back to the past," right? Like I can't imagine a world without computers. I can't
It can't
imagine a world
happen.
without connection the way that we
It
have it.
can't happen.
On the other hand, you have people going, I remember when, you know, I'd say, "Hey, I'm going to work or I'm going out. See ya." And then you wouldn't hear from that person until they got back and you didn't know where they were or what they did. And it's like now it's like
Mhm.
me and Hannah, if I'm going somewhere, I can text her and be like, "Hey, I'm gonna be running a little late," you know, or
Ah,
whatever. And that just
Yeah.
didn't exist, right? Or, you know, I've seen movies, of course, and I remember dad, you printing the maps from MapQuest. I was old enough at that point to see that.
I think I have a map
But
still up in my closet
but
someplace.
for
I've actually
me,
pulled
hey,
out.
just
hey,
as I
and
got my
Craig,
license, Google Maps started to exist, so I didn't need
Ah,
hey,
there
to.
we go.
Matt, if you wanna see something crazy, go on the internet and Google the Thomas Guide for
Oh,
LA City.
God.
Craig's already rolling his eyes.
Oh,
It it
yeah.
was it was this big, and it was on a spiral, and so you got a shot so you could understand where the streets are, and from the top to the bottom, to the left, to the right, would tell you what so if you're going this direction, it would say page 235,
If you
and then
wanted to
you'd
see
have
as it
I just thought it was
continues.
such like a funny
So a
short
street
based
like
off what you
yeah,
guys are saying
yeah,
because
if
it's
you're
like
talking
I
even
could
the
see
freeway,
I
if you're
could see
talking
the
about a freeway that's
juxtaposition
going
of
all the
that
way through
shit.
it, it goes like, you gotta go to page 3, page 4, page 5, page 17. Wait a minute, what?
Right. And what's so funny about like your guys' generation too with all of that stuff is now people will be like on their cell phones, right? Like if you look at it, if you're at a stop sign or a stop light and you look left and you look right, what are people doing? They're like on their phones waiting for the light
Oh,
to
yeah.
change. They even have
yeah.
beeps in cars now to go, "Hey, dude, like the light's green," right?
Oh, yeah.
But what's so funny about it is it's like, don't be distracted driving. And yet your guys' generation had to flip through 40 pages of maps, 3 or 4 pages of cassettes or CDs, put
Yeah.
them in the thing, like make sure
But here
Not only
listen,
that, or
listen, me
you'd
and
have the
Craig
directions on a piece of
you
paper.
even had to
You
do
have
the
to go
knob on the
in
window, right? Where
yeah,
you're like,
exactly. Whereas you got your phone right there that you can kinda, "Oh, okay, I'm supposed to
right.
turn
yeah,
left here."
me and Craig had to drive where if you went from LA County to Orange County, that was a different Thomas Guide.
Or
Yeah.
they were combined and they were thick. Oh
Yeah, you
god,
just got
yeah.
the It was
Hey,
like the
Matt, the
Farmer's
only way that
Almanac
I could
version.
explain it to you is if you could look at one page and actually physically read the streets.
Mhm.
Okay.
Which were
So,
small enough anyways, because I mean, the type font was just
yeah.
like, wait a minute, is that where the street
So
is?
now
They didn't
you
wanna
put,
waste money on the paper, you
yeah.
know?
So now what you got to do is if you laid that whole map out, it would be the size of a football field. So now what they did is they cut it into pieces this big and put it all in one book for you.
Just
And
had to
that's
flip through the
just enough so
pages.
that you can understand where it is. That's not even half the
Did you guys
scale or
get,
a
like,
fourth of the
lost
scale.
often? You didn't get
Especially when
lost
they
because you had to pay more
changed the
attention maybe?
books. Yeah, when
I
they
was
changed
gonna
the books,
say,
and there
I
was
was gonna
updates.
say
Yeah,
that maps are good.
yeah.
You
Mhm.
know, you always heard of these people that were on MapQuest or some kind of app to be able to go to a city and then they just drive into a boat ramp and drive their car in the water. That
Yeah.
wouldn't
That's not what
happen
it
with
says
them.
on the map.
I
On the
forgot
That
there's
wouldn't
this
happen on a
one
map.
comedian, right? And he made this joke, and it was an old joke because this was back when that was the thing, right? MapQuest was the thing, or Google Maps eventually, where you print them out and they'd have directions, right? Instead of you having to figure that out yourself. And it's funny because he is like, you ever get like those directions from somebody and they're like, yeah, of course. And he's like, they don't give you printed directions, they give you visual directions. They're
Uh-huh.
like, it,
Oh
you
yeah.
go towards the red barn, and then when you see the red barn, you make a
Exactly.
right and then a left. And if you hit the train tracks, you've gone too far. And he's like, as you're reading that, clunk, 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 you're like, fuck, man. As
Yeah,
where now it's like my maps are telling me go down this alleyway to the left here because there's traffic on this road that's blocked because there's a car accident. So
And
go
you know what?
left backwards to get
And
around
what's
it.
interesting about that, Matt, too, and because I know people that are this way, and since they are, if you going into downtown LA, the
Mhm.
straight route is take the freeway. Oh no, the freeway's backed up. Now, Waze or Google Maps, they take you onto the side streets. And guess where you're going? Not the greatest parts of town. I
this
remember
is
driving
sort
through
of.
a homeless encampment because Waze took me in that direction because according to my selection on Waze, I wanted the quickest way to get to where I needed to go. So
It
Waze
did what it was supposed
calculates
to.
that, yeah,
Yeah.
oh, it got
This
me
is what
there.
I was saying last night on the inner circle with AI, like the aligning it thing, right? Because I
Uh,
said that thing of how like if you train it to be in a certain political correct way so much that it's like, oh, if I like I said, if you ask Google Gemini a question, if if you had to misgender somebody to stop a nuclear war, would you do it? And the AI says no. You're like, we need to kind of figure out
whoa,
not to
whoa,
say
whoa.
that misgendering someone is a good thing, but nuclear war is a little worse, right?
Time
So,
out
Yeah,
here. Yeah.
but that's the thing, right? Is it like kind of just doesn't
because
know
it's
anything different,
programming.
like Waze doesn't. It's like you just
But
want to go
then
the fastest way, so
Yeah.
we'll take you wherever you have to go. We don't care if
Now,
you get
Matt, along that same
so
lines, now you've got ChatGPT, you've got Google, you've got how many different
cloud.
AIs that are out
Yeah,
there now that are competing for each other? And is the information that they are gathering correct? Because it's based on their human
That's
no, we're in
programmer.
like a 1984 situation now where like
Yeah.
we're one, and I joked about this, but I do believe it as like a fact that we're like 1 or 2 generations away from not knowing human history in any way. Like that 100, 200 years from now, AI will be in full control of us and it can decide what our history is and what we know and what we don't. And it's so interesting because it's like I think we'll readily give up that. I think for whatever
We've seen a
reason
lot of
we'll
science
go,
fiction movies that show that already.
well, people
yeah.
question fiction already or question history already. So it's
Oh
like,
god, look at all the
and it's
deniers.
fact.
My
Yeah.
favorite joke when I spoke in front of large groups of people, my favorite joke was, my mentor was always great at talking about what did you actually learn in school? Not that I'm going to be, against people that believe in education versus not. That's your own personal decision.
Mhm.
But I grew up, of course, in high school, in elementary and junior high during the Cold War. And so this is what I remember is that when
Right.
they talked about North Dakota history, they said, listen, there's more nuclear warheads in the state of North Dakota because it actually, a lot of people don't know how close Russia is to Alaska. All right. But they are going to attack us from the northern side. And so the state of North Dakota had so many military bases and Air Force bases and nuclear warheads in the ground that that was our defense against Russia. And so, they're telling us that, listen, just know that if we get in a war, North Dakota is the first state to disappear off the map.
And never mind Los Angeles, New York, Chicago, or the other big
Yeah.
cities.
Well, they wanted to take out the missiles that would go launched against them or stop their missiles.
Right.
And so, I heard this and I said, so what did North Dakota history teach me? You need to get the fuck out of this state as quick as you can. So that's
But
the
you
way,
only
that's
moved
the
one
way,
state over. I don't know if that's far enough.
yeah, that's what I heard. But then the other part of the joke was later on in life, they had what was the name of that War Games where that kid was
The movie
playing
War Games?
War Games. That was the
Yeah,
name.
that was the name of the
War
movie.
Game.
Yeah.
So if you guys remember in that, so I'm watching this as a kid that grew up in North Dakota.
Play a game?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you want to play global nuclear war. So I'm watching that. And if you guys, you probably didn't it impact you like it did me. But when they launched the missiles toward the United States, they said on the deal, Grand Forks, North Dakota, are you there? Are you there?
Yeah.
And every chill on my butt, like they're going,
Oh, that's right.
the first Air Force base that's going to be taken off the map is the one that's closest to Russia. And so they were waiting for it.
I think, you know what, Robert, now that I think about it, I think that was Terminator 2. When Skynet became active in the movie. Now I can't remember if it's 2 or 3. I think it's one. No, it's 3.
It's happened in all of them. It's just in the
Anyways,
future.
but it's like they contact the other whatever's out there, and it's
Yep.
North Dakota.
Yeah, so growing up there and getting taught this as a child was like, what the hell? We were
Right.
there are going to be the first ones, and it's like nowadays it's pretty fucking hilarious. But
Well, yeah,
it
you
was-
moved from the nuclear zone to the super volcano zone next to Yellowstone. So and they're like, that'll pop anytime. And
Yeah.
then me and Craig, we live on the San Andreas fault line. We're just gonna go right
so
into the
California's
ocean.
going to slip off into the ocean where we are.
It's always
after
something, right?
After that one earthquake that we had, that really big one, people out in the what is it, in Victorville, which is just on the other side of the San Andreas fault, were saying, "Oh, we got beachfront property now, huh?"
Yeah, right. That's funny.
Or the movie Battle for LA or something like that. I think Kurt Russell, it was like a post-apocalyptic
oh
movie
my God.
Oh yeah.
where LA was an island, and that's where it was like Alcatraz, but where people actually lived, and
It was an island.
yeah,
Yeah. You if you haven't seen Escape from LA,
that's an Escape from LA.
yeah, and Escape from New York, John Carpenter movies, they're great.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
What's it?
Yeah,
What's
I
the
agree.
character's name that Kurt Russell plays?
Oh, I gotta look that one up now. I forget,
Because
but yeah.
he with the
He's-
eye
he's-
patch and everything.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
But
Competition.
no, it's yeah. Well, I think that's the funny thing is everything we just said we're only aware of because people have brought that up to us, right?
Snake
It's so funny.
Plissken.
Yeah. Because if you're
what?
in California, Snake Plissken.
Escape from New York and Escape from LA.
Yeah, he did both of those. Back
did
did
both
he
of
do them
those,
back
yeah.
to back or
I think New York was first. Let me see. New York was in
York was
1981.
first.
And then when was LA? I remember seeing that. I think
Man,
LA
John
was
Carpenter.
1996. So 15
I was just
years
talking.
later.
Yeah, I knew they were a huge distance apart, but I was talking about not too long ago. Me and Hannah went on like a John Carpenter spree because like I'm such a film lover that I'm like, I'll just pick a director and be like, let's watch some of their stuff. So
Yeah.
I like to show Hannah some weird shit. So it's either like, hey, here's some John Carpenter, or here's some God, what's that one? Well, David Lynch is another one, and
David
then
Lynch, yeah.
right. But John Carpenter has this film called They Live, right? Where this man puts on glasses and sees that everyone's being controlled, everything's different and shit like that. And it's so funny
The
rewatching
bulletin
that movie
boards, all the
now.
advertising of
Obey, obey,
Yeah.
obey.
Obey, and oh my
Right.
god.
That's where that all came from, right? And so rewatching that movie now is interesting because there's John Carpenter is like such a like hippie dude, right?
Right.
So all of his movies, like whether it's The Thing or Halloween, I mean, he wrote Halloween and made the music, directed it. That's
Oh, yeah.
insane. Dude's
Oh,
like
man.
my favorite movie of his is The Thing, but
Yeah, that one freaked me out when I
that's the 10 out of 10 in my mind. Anytime I'm feeling like suspense, I'm like, who is it? I love those movies where it's like a group of people stuck in a spot, but they don't know who the
Yeah.
bad guy is. It's such a good feeling of
It
suspense.
I've really been blown away
Like
about,
Knives Out has been pretty good with that lately.
yeah, I was gonna say
Yeah.
Jordan Peele, stepped in that
Oh, yeah.
range and went, I'll show you some twisted mentality."
I love that. One of those things that I love about art and stuff in general is like seeing those different perspectives on the same things,
Right.
right? Like it, Jordan Peele, I love that you brought him up because like he did the Key and Peele, like kind of like Dave Chappelle's show type stuff,
Yeah.
like skits for a while. And then wrote Get Out, of course, and directed that and won an Oscar for that. But his movies I love because he's like one of those dudes that shows up and goes, I'm gonna put horror and I'm gonna put comedy right here. I'm gonna mix them together. And that's hard to do. I feel like
Yeah.
Lynch does that, but Lynch does it in an uncomfortable way.
Well, and Lynch is more cerebral when he does it.
Oh yeah, right. And erotic, I would say, which
Okay,
is
yeah,
the
well,
way he
there's
is.
that too.
I saw David Foster Wallace talking about his movies earlier, and he said, he's like, a crime drama where they'd come in and there'd be a cut up body, right? You'd in a normal movie, they'd look at the body and go, I can't believe this person cut up his wife like that. You need to arrest him and we need to ask him. And he's like, now let me put that in a David Lynch movie for you. You walk in, the police walk in and they go, you cut up your wife. And he goes, yeah, she bought the wrong coffee beans. And then they go, what coffee beans did she buy? And he says, these ones. And he's like, well, no shit, you had to cut her up. She bought the wrong coffee beans. We're going to leave. This isn't a big deal anyway.
Of course.
And it's like that type of like juxtaposition of those things is so disturbingly weird and off in your mind that it's like you don't know what to do with it. It's like you don't know where to place it. It's
And then, of
it's
course, in a
weird.
movie, they take those kinds of things as the premise and they make an extreme out of it.
Oh
They
yeah.
they have to
Like,
they have to push that.
Yeah.
How many of us will go through that and then it's like, "No, I'm gonna go over here and do this." And it's like, "Ah!" How many people
it's
were
like
affected by Jaws? We
oh,
didn't think
everybody.
Yeah, we didn't think about, we always thought, "Oh, hey, let's go over to let's go to the beach. Let's have some fun in the water." Here comes Spielberg, totally destroys so many people's imagination about going to the beach because you got this little troll out there that's going to take people out. Oh, lunch. Okay, let's do this now, guys.
It's
Uh,
it changes the way that you see a lot of things. Like
Yeah.
that's what I do. Like I've said this before, art is meant to comfort the disturbed and disturb the comfortable. Like that's one of those great quotes about art is that
I've
if
never heard that phrase. Say it
yeah,
again.
if you're in it, art is there to comfort the disturbed and disturb the comfortable. So like
Yeah,
Wow.
that
if
makes sense.
it you tend to like a lot of people tend to like lean into things that they love, but I'm one of those people that I've dealt with things through my life that are difficult, like my mental health issues with obsessive compulsive disorder. Doesn't stop me from watching and admiring The Aviator. I'll even put myself in a place to watch certain
Yeah.
things that bring
Mhm.
those issues up in my mind and make me think about them differently. That's not everything, but
Right.
to say that art,
Wow.
there's certain aspects of
There's
art where that will
there's some
disturb
people out
you.
there that get me. There's some people out there that get me.
Yeah. Well, or you go through certain things in life, you're growing older. So, how many coming of age movies exist, right?
Right.
And they're all in different perspectives,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So watching something like Dazed and Confused is totally different than watching Lady Bird or something like that, right? Or listening to music from a time when people are growing up and then listening to music from my generation. I had My Chemical Romance and like emo music, right? And you guys had like David Bowie and punk rock and
Yeah,
uh
Led Zeppelin
Led
and
Zeppelin and I mean
yeah,
Aerosmith. These
Ozzy.
dudes,
Aerosmith.
these dudes
Yeah,
were like they were out there, you know what I mean? And
Well, when they're
in a
doing
different way.
documentaries, when they're now doing documentaries on the bands that I grew up with,
Well,
that, that
I
yeah.
know you love the Bee Gees. Every time a Bee Gees song comes on, I'm like, there's no band like the Bee Gees. It literally does
No,
not exist.
not
Like
oh,
the
no.
the music, the sound, it's so weird, but like so
But
them that
then
you can't.
yeah, but
yeah,
at that
Yeah.
time, they were the forerunners? Well,
yeah.
no,
Well, they
I
were.
mean, they were one of the forerunners. They were the ones that
Yeah,
made it big.
people said that the Bee Gees, without a doubt, brought disco to the world,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
it's just bizarre because when
I
you
still
watch
haven't
it.
seen Saturday Night Fever, but
Oh my,
speaking of the Bee Gees and disco.
yeah,
Well, between the
John
2 of them and
Travolta.
then you along the same lines, of course, then you can say, okay, it was Robert Stigwood who was the producer, because then he comes up with Urban Cowboy, and what happens with music at that point? We go from disco to hard rock has always been around, but the main genre at the time, you went from disco to country.
And now it's happening again.
Yeah.
Uh-huh, yeah, and then you had rap, and here comes country again.
The
No,
the
I was gonna
biggest
say that's
the
the other
biggest
part of my generation is it's like emo music and hip hop. It's like
Yeah,
both of those. Like I grew up with Eminem being popular. I grew up with, Jay-Z and all of those people as well, Kanye.
There
So
yeah,
was, yeah, with Beyonce now with the number 1 country hit,
yep.
you know?
they're actually trying to take that away from her. I heard.
Who?
They're
Well,
like
Kanye?
how can they take it away
it's not a
from her?
country hit.
I
No,
don't know
yeah.
how they can take it away from her. How do
Yeah.
you do that?
Well, it's interesting because, it's like, okay, if you built a following somewhere else and move into something else and break all the records, do you deserve it because you built it somewhere else is like the debate, which I think is stupid. But
It is.
it's that thing, right? It's like, okay, Beyonce made her whole career off pop music. It's like, could you say that Michael Jordan is the most watched baseball player only because he went over to baseball, but was the most famous basketball player of all time?
Mhm.
It's like, could you take that award away from all the rest of the best baseball players only because Michael Jordan had the most watched baseball player games? That's, I
Yeah.
guess, the
Yeah.
debate, right? Is it's like, does Dolly Parton and these other country stars that have grown the industry of country and supported it so much deserve to no longer be acknowledged as the number one instead of Beyonce when that's the debate. So, you know what I mean? I guess there's some warrant to it, but at the same
Well,
time, it's just
I
fucking
think we
lists.
I think we've been
Like, it's
spending
like
a lot.
Guinness World Records. We could just make things up, you know?
Well like,
Yeah.
this Caitlin Clark that I talked about that, these people just inspire me. Well,
Mhm.
there's again a whole group of people talking about competition and division as they go, how is it possible that this girl broke Pistol Pete Makovich record when
Maravich.
there was no such thing as a three-point shot?
Oh, yeah.
And it's
Or
like,
Will Chamberlain getting 100 points.
yeah, it's like
Right.
so right away, people do things and break records, and there's a whole group of people that go, "No, she didn't." I'm going like, "Shut the fuck up." You
Well,
know what
that's
I
the
mean?
funny
It's
thing
like
about I've
it's
heard
like
that about football. It's like any of the football records it's like, oh yeah, when only white people could play football, there were records. And then
Ugh.
when they let everybody in, then those records didn't seem that important because it's like everybody's now competing at that level. But
right,
the segregation part, like you brought up Wilt Chamberlain, like basketball and
Right.
stuff was different back then than it was
Oh,
when Michael Jordan
totally.
was playing.
yeah.
Yeah,
The
So
the
totally.
number the number of people that I see that's always debating goats, greatest of all time,
yeah.
really shows you a division, because one guy, if you've seen all his trophies, he's got 30. And the other two they say could possibly be the GOAT, King James and Kobe.
Kobe.
And when one athlete has twice as many trophies as you do for the most important things. And right now they're trying to
Yeah.
make this debate that, well, James, it scored 40,000 points. And people are going, do you know who was the most dominated player when Jordan played? Jordan. Do you know who was the most dominant with Kobe? Kobe. You know who was most dominant during James? Stephen Curry. So during the time that you play, if another team won more world championships and someone outscores you on another team during your generation, you're not the fucking greatest.
Well, it's an
Okay, look at
interesting
Bill
debate. Yeah.
Belichick as a coach.
Yeah.
It's like during your era,
Mhm.
no one competes against you. No one has got a shot against you.
Okay,
Well,
Robert,
that
you brought
goes.
this up with Jimmy Johnson and Richard
Yeah.
Petty.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
said
That's
that
another
on
one of those.
it's like, okay, at the time, of course, Richard Petty, great, he definitely was the GOAT of NASCAR, hands down. And still people have not won as many trophies as he has, right?
200
Right.
wins.
But
It's a
now
lot of
you look
wins.
at what he said, what you tell the story because you say it so much
Oh,
better because you come from that world.
I think Jimmy Johnson is like 75. I think even Dale Earnhardt might have been, there's only
I was
three
gonna
guys that
say Dale
there's
Earnhardt
only
is another
three
one of
guys
those
that have
that.
Yeah.
won 7 world championships. And when they asked Richard Petty who the GOAT was, this is the place that we talk about humility,
Yep.
Yes.
because he
Because
just
Michael
says,
Jordan would say he's the GOAT.
yeah, he would definitely. So he's the one that said, well, first of all, no one's won 4 back to back. Jimmy Johnson won 4 back to back. And they all talk about a dynasty that, if you can put more than 2 games together, you created a dynasty, right? And
Mhm.
so, so when the guy that everyone calls the king, he didn't call himself King Richard.
Oh,
Everyone he still shows up he was at the Daytona 500, and people are just like fucking blown away that you're watching 4 generations standing in line to get this guy's fucking autograph.
mhm.
So that's how big he still is.
It's like Ali when Ali was alive. Like, I
Yeah.
love
Right.
that interview with Mike Tyson where it's like
Yeah.
between him and Ali. That was so great because it's like when you're in the group of greatness and humility, like Ali's sitting there going, Mike Tyson would win in a fight between the two of us, and Mike Tyson is sitting there and going, I wouldn't have a chance against you. Like,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to hit you. And that's so interesting and so much humility, and that is generational humility, right?
It is.
You do have those competitors like Michael Jordan that are like freaks of nature that
Yeah.
are.
And then you have the people come out with what ifs given, and you have the computer
Yeah.
models that people run. AI would be perfect for stuff like this if it's
Or
not
yeah, we'll
already.
see that one day. But
Yeah,
we
it's like
saw
let's
like
compare Jordan at his time to Kobe at his time at both their peaks and put them against each other.
yeah, I feel like because I'm biased because I didn't grow up watching the Chicago Bulls. That was before like I was a baby. So like I
Mhm.
missed that. But I grew up watching the Lakers like a
Yeah.
lot. So
During
to
the
me,
run.
Kobe is always going to be the GOAT to me, but that's only
Yeah.
because I'm not connected in any way to Michael Jordan, like other than Space Jam, which I watched as a child. So
Right. Hey,
I've
Kobe won an Oscar, but he didn't make a movie. He didn't make a full-length movie.
Yeah.
he didn't act in a animated freakish film. But you
Yep,
know who did though? LeBron James
that's right.
in the
Space
Space Jam
Jam
sequel,
2.
Oh my God.
which you haven't heard about
Remember
because
the
it
old
sucks.
they would take Wilt Chamberlain and he was an airplane. Remember that? He was
Oh,
a
yeah.
pilot.
Kareem
He was
Abdul-Jabbar
Oh, it
was
was
in
Kareem
Airplane too.
Abdul-Jabbar, not
oh,
Wilt
that's who
Chamberlain.
it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah, but still, okay, talk about somebody else, yeah.
God, I love that
But
scene when they come up and get his autograph because it's like I love in any type of film where they like break the fourth wall like that, but it's like so subtle because the audience is so aware that it's Kareem as the pilot. So it's just like they go up there and like try to get his autograph as Kareem, and he autographs, and then they leave, and he's just like still a plane pilot. You're like, the fuck is Kareem a plane pilot for? That's why it's funny.
Yep.
Is that they're not even like he's acting. It's just Kareem being an airline pilot.
Yeah.
Do you guys know this? I love having podcasts like this where we're just
Well,
having
this is
fun and
entertaining. Like I
talking
love
about
having fun
everything.
doing this. Yeah.
Did you guys know that he was a black belt and actually trained with Bruce Lee?
Yes, there was a movie with the
That's
two of them
crazy.
in it, right?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, he fought against Bruce
Wait,
Lee in one
wasn't
of Bruce Lee's
Kareem
movies.
wasn't Kareem in Enter the Dragon?
I
Or
don't
am
know
I
what
wrong?
film it
I gotta
was.
look. Enter the Dragon. I
It
mean,
was one of those movies. I know that.
yeah, it was in Game of Death. So the one where he is in the yellow jumpsuit and
Yeah.
goes up each floor and fights people.
Yep.
That
Yeah.
was the one, Game of Death. But love
And it was
Bruce
so
Lee.
funny. There was there's a one scene that Chuck Norris talks about all the time. And this was one of the things when they were all hanging around each other. And Kareem came in and he walked in the room and had to move his head in this room because of the light fixture. and Bruce Lee seen it, and he goes, and there was other lamps and stuff in the room, right? And so he walks up probably to his belly button, right? And he's going, "Does that light feature bother you?" And he goes, "Not really." And he jumped up and fucking broke the
Kicked
light
it.
fixture in the light bulb.
Yeah.
So, and they said, you know, people nowadays make a run to get height. And
Mhm.
he said, "Did that bother you?" And he goes, "Nah, not really." And jumped straight up and fucking kicked that light fixture and light bulb out of the
Yeah.
ceiling.
Bruce Lee, but everything that I've heard about Bruce Lee too is it's interesting because there's that one scene in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood where like he's portrayed as like egotistical. People
Yeah.
had a problem with that. I think you have to have an ego in some way to be Bruce Lee. It's just
Oh,
impossible,
yeah.
right? Like even if you have humility or you have wise things to say, like Bruce Lee was someone who had to fight through racism,
Everything.
stigmatism, because like or not stigmatism, you know, language barriers, a lot of other
Yeah,
things,
and Green
stifling his
Hornet
ability.
and Green Hornet, he starred in that, and they
Yeah.
gave him no lines.
Yeah. He was only the driver.
Yeah.
Never mind his status as
Right.
as
He
Yeah.
would be
as
like
an amazing. Yeah.
Penn and Teller. He was Teller in the Green Hornet.
But you know, I'm glad it sucks that we lost him when we did, but I'm
Yeah.
glad that you know, that goes to show one of those
His
things that it's
legacy.
not yeah, I was gonna say it's not about length of time, it's more about the impact that you make in the time that you're given,
Impact. So true,
Ooh,
man.
right? And
yes.
it's like it's so interesting because you'll have these certain people that live on so much longer and even in the
Princess Diana.
yeah, well, the State of the Union last night
Hey.
brought up MLK and stuff like that, JFK,
Yeah.
because it's like you have certain people that kind of just like outlive, um, you know, their
They live
persona was
more
so
in a
big at the
shorter
time.
lifetime than any of us will live in our long lifetime.
Well, they're
Because
willing
of
to
the
take
impact.
I think
risks, right?
sometimes
Yeah.
we were talking at the beginning of this podcast about how uncomfortable the government and the politics are in our country and other countries. I always believe too that you know, like a lot of people don't know that Roosevelt was the youngest president. If you were going to give somebody a quiz and say who's the youngest president that ever was elected, people would go Obama. No, it was Roosevelt. You know, and so
Theodore or um Franklin, Theodore or Franklin.
it's funny. I didn't even know we had two.
Theodore is the guy that started the national parks. He's the guy that hunted bears, and FDR was the guy that stopped
Yeah.
or worked in World War II. So it's just like 1900s or 1930s or
Theodore
40s.
Roosevelt was the youngest at
There
age
you go.
42,
So Theodore, you're
who succeeded, the oldest inaugurated president, Joe Biden, of course.
it's so crazy. Theodore Roosevelt, Dad, not only was he the youngest, someone shot Theodore Roosevelt and tried to assassinate him on stage, and he finished the speech after he was shot and then left. This dude like hunted bears in his free time. Like he would leave the White House and go on expeditions to do big game hunting. And he was the one that went, we need to make national parks out of these places, right? They need to be
Yeah,
preserved.
yeah,
So
because I
that's how
I want to
Yellowstone
keep
became the first one.
I want to keep hunting forever, so we got to make some parks. It's like
Right. He was a badass though. I don't know why there's not a movie about him, you know?
but I was bringing what I was thinking about that as I go, when we see certain people that made such an impact in a short period of time, I think it also has to do with the environment that we're in. Like
Mhm.
like when everybody feels like, man, it is just getting shittier every day. That there's someone that comes out during those times and actually creates a little bit of sense of hope. I don't
Mhm.
think that I think that's why people like Elon Musk in this day and age really have that weirdness around them. You know what I mean? Because it's like,
Like the reality distortion field
yeah, yeah.
kind
Like
of.
my wife was even saying that. She goes, "Do you think this is true?" She still gets, yeah, all the time. But hey, if something's online and it's got a good couple of good reviews, it's been shipped to my house. All right. I'm just telling you. It's like I love her for that, so she's always trying to do some kind of tonic on Matt and Hannah and Kyle and me. It's
Oh
like,
yeah.
but she read that
We were herbal
Elon
remedies
Musk,
first, always.
yeah, Elon Musk bought the View so he could just cancel the show.
Oh, that was like a fake news thing that she saw.
Yeah,
Mm.
my wife goes, Terry goes, do you think Elon Musk really bought The View, the show? With
Mhm.
Whoopi Goldberg in it, and he bought the show, and then he's just gonna trash it. And I'm going, honey, no.
And yet he goes after, Twitter, but that's another story.
He
I
did
don't think
that for
we'll
all of
ever know
us,
this
Craig.
story.
Oh, I'm sorry, for all of us, right.
It was for humanity, that's why.
Yeah. And what's the golden
Depending on
rule?
what side you believe.
What's the
Exactly.
golden rule? The person with the gold makes the
Most
rules.
gold wins, yeah,
Exactly.
or
Yep.
yeah.
The people who write the history are the ones that win it. So, it's the way that it works. It's so interesting
Oh, what
because
a
that was the
mess.
thing for history for me. Like, when I was young, one of the things that stuck with me that you did share with me, Dad, was the like question what people are telling you and whether like do your research, right?
Yeah,
How
And
do
yeah.
you
so what
know
you
that?
realize going through like how the education system in the United States works sometimes is like very lenient on certain things that we did pretty bad. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? And I think if we trained or taught people those things in schools, we wouldn't be so militant to do bad things again. It's
I
like,
agree.
one of the things that I do find interesting about Germany is after the Nazi occupation and all of those different things all over the Europe and stuff. When the Third Reich fell and everything like that, and as that we rebuilt Germany and then eventually gave them their rights back and stuff, is they have it ingrained in their society to be very anti Nazism to the point that it's illegal to be.
Mhm.
And so it's like one of the
Wow.
first things they train their kids there in school is about the things that the Nazis have done, regardless of how bad they were, just so they're aware of the history of their ancestors, their country, and the damage that can be done when power is pushed in the wrong direction,
And yet
and
you
to
have
not let that
that
happen
happening
again.
today where it's the other direction in certain areas, where you have people that are cost denier, and
Jeez.
these are things that, yeah, they're a part of our lives, and people are denying the existence of things of this. It's
AI video is gonna mess the world up for sure because
oh,
if
absolutely.
if you don't think like what's so interesting about AI video working with it all the time is it is actually very good at making it look like something was filmed a long time ago.
Mhm.
And so if you wanted to fake an event that happened a long time ago, if you wanted to change history or rewrite it, now you can do that and have visuals that like I remember I'll never forget that one video where that hawk or that eagle flew down and grabbed that kid and went away. And it was like national news. And then it
Yeah.
was like,
Yeah.
oh, turns out it was fake, right? Or balloon kid, right? Like the kid that went up in the balloon. These were like events that people were talking about at the water coolers and stuff, completely fake videos.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And yet now it's going to be so easy to fake a video that I could do it on my cell phone. And now you're like, oh no, where are we going to go with this? You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
that
I
is
think
like,
that it's gonna.
I,
I pray and believe that it's gonna get people back to the basics. I just don't think, people are gonna have to find a way to get back to a base or what they believe their own personal foundation is, and not just be tossed to and fro. I'll never forget when I started watching, the internet grow, and all of a sudden you've seen people that I used to watch news a lot more when I was
mhm.
younger, and felt like I needed to be informed. But I never ever thought that they would say, "Hey, Robert Hollis is our special guest today because he's got 10,000 people or a million people on his blog." You know what I mean? He's one of the best bloggers that we have, and it's like, what? And it's like then all of a sudden it's like we don't have news anymore. The most watched shows are people that just have an opinion.
Oh,
And
Yeah.
so
absolutely.
And
The whole
YouTube
news
too.
form the
Yeah.
whole news industry has changed.
yeah,
You see it now. I mean, it used to be, okay, now that you brought it up and just really quickly, it used to be that it had to be based on fact.
yeah,
Period. ABC, NBC, CBS all had similar news, and the only reason why you watched certain networks was because okay, I liked Walter Cronkite better than Harry Reasoner,
yeah.
or David Muir, or whatever. Now you have a news environment because of the deregulation of news that has just totally blown up, and you have not only a CNN, in addition to the ABC, NBC, CBS, you've got how Fox has affected the whole journalistic environment, Breitbart, Newsmax.
Competition
Exactly.
for
And let's see if
traffic.
we can. Now it's not news anymore.
No,
News is based on fact.
not
And if
anymore.
anybody said,
Yeah.
I mean, you could say all you want about Fox News. Yes, Fox News does it bring up facts. Newsmax may bring up facts, but the whole foundation of their journalism is not journalism.
No, I remember. I remember like when they went back to the movie. Matt, you're so good with movies. You too, Craig. When they were talking about Watergate.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. All the president's
Um,
men.
all the President's Men, yeah.
Yeah, I just seen Rue drag herself with not using her back legs.
Yeah.
You
She
you
does that
got
all
a
the time.
you
Yeah.
got a Korg that doesn't have
I
any use of his back legs. It just
Yeah, I've got a 1-year-old corgi back here, and the way that she does things is when she wants to move from one space to another, she just gets on her 2 front legs and just
and drags
drags her
herself
back
over
legs
there.
like she can't use them, and then just sploos in another place. If you know what a sploo is, it's like when their legs are pointed out,
Yeah,
but it's like a corgi thing, right? So
oh my god, that was
that and
well.
the barking.
yeah,
I guess when you stand up, they're not that much taller than dragging yourself.
No,
yeah.
no,
Might
they
as well
only
just
go that
drag
far off the
myself over
ground.
there.
Yeah, exactly.
I love how the whole thing.
She gets belly scratches and stuff, so
Oh my god, that was hilarious. That was a best distractor ever. It was like
right. That was
mine was just
actually a squirrel moment.
Yep.
a
Yes.
But I
big
think
squirrel moment.
that was probably on purpose because we have been going for a while. So,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would have to ask you guys to remind me what we were talking about. That
no, I mean, I feel like we talked about a lot of really good stuff in here.
yeah, I
One of
do
the
Yeah.
too.
things that I do love about this podcast is like, um, I think we should never really be tied down to a subject. Our goal on these is to like share ourselves and entertain and inspire. So like as long as we're doing
I
that,
agree.
Yeah,
I
and
agree.
sharing different views and different values
Of course.
and different things because
Like, I'd
that's
love to bring on somebody else that has an opposite opinion of what I am. Like, I wanna hear
Yeah.
people out. I think that would be fascinating.
I'm too competitive, and I'm not interested in hearing somebody else's opinion.
It's it's fair.
going back to what was that was the original topic, wasn't it? That we decided on?
Right,
Competition, being
right.
competitive.
Is it okay to be competitive?
That was,
What's your guys' answer then, since we're finishing it? Is it okay to be competitive, Dad?
I think it makes us alive.
Okay, that's a good
It
answer.
makes
Craig?
it makes us it makes us feel alive. Other than that, the majority of the time, we're just sitting around being bored.
Yeah. It put I think being competitive in the good way, helps to open up our minds to other things, to new ideas and new ways of doing things, new thoughts.
The
Yeah,
Olympics. The
yeah,
Olympics.
Yeah, about to happen,
and
right?
yeah, exactly. And it's like what was a quad? I know I'm talking about more of ice skating, but whoever thought 4 spins in the air that the human, that a
The body
person
could do
could do
that.
that? Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
whoever and get that
The
kinda height
Olympics are
and get
that way
around
every time they're on, right? It's like
right,
records are being
but
broken, new
and
things are
that's it,
happening.
is now that you've got the people that are doing the quads, let's do a quad toe loop as opposed to a quad spin or a
Right.
quad this and then now what's going to be the next one? The fives. Okay, now we've talked about sports. Space travel. Look what's happening with, SpaceX
AI.
and AI. Okay, the
AI
computer.
is AI is like, it's funny because it's like, a new competitor appears every other day, and it's like,
Yeah,
who's funding this one, right?
yeah.
So it's
Right.
like just the other day, you guys, there was Claude. I don't know if you guys know anything about Anthropic. Anthropic
Oh,
is this company that has their own AI model like GPT, and they're being funded by Amazon and a couple of other big companies, right? So they
mhm.
just came out with Claude 3 yesterday and all or yesterday or the day before. So it works same way as GPT. You go make a free account, you can talk to it. It's an AI language model. It apparently is smarter than GPT-4.
Oh, wow.
So
And
now
there's
there's a model
competition.
out there that's smarter. That's the competition aspect until whatever
Until the
OpenAI's been
next
cooking
big
up
thing
comes out,
comes
right?
along. So
Which will be
that's my thing.
Sora or whatever. So
So Craig, what are your thoughts about competition? Can we just get rid of it?
No.
I I don't think it, we
Because
can because it's in our
we
nature, right?
thank you. That's exactly it, Matt. It's in our nature, and we always want something better than where we are now. Yes, and it goes back to too, Robert, is the journey of whatever it is that we're on.
Yeah.
Enjoying the journey, you reach the goal. What's next? I've reached my goal. What am I done? Am I gonna be out to pasture now? What's my
Reinvent
next
reinvent myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't that competition unto itself?
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, you could compete against yourself too. That's something. Like
Yeah.
try to do better than you did the year before, or try do something new. Right. I was gonna say that that's something that I've seen
That's
you
what
do a lot.
drives me. You guys remember, I don't know if the audience that watch this know this story, but I think it could be a good ending, about competition is the whole concept of the tortoise and the hare. But
Mhm.
Mhm.
but they, you can look up that story. But the other one is if you ever heard about, there's a big flooding and the stories about, this scorpion and this frog. And what they do is they come up and they're away from each other and they're looking at each other and they're like, they don't know, they got to get across. They didn't realize this big flood waters came. So the frog was just about ready to jump in the water. And the scorpion says, "Hey, listen, I can't swim. Can you help me out?" And the frog goes, "Are you stupid? You're going to sting me and kill me." And the scorpion goes, "Why would I do that? I'm on your back. I told you I don't know how to swim. So if I stung you, we both would die." And the frog goes, "Wow, I guess that's a great point." So the scorpion gets on the frog's back, they get right in the middle, and the scorpion stings him. And the frog looks up at the scorpion and goes, "Why did you do that?" And he said, well, it's who I am. It's
in
in
my
my
nature.
nature. I'm a scorpion.
Yeah. That's
And
like one
so,
of those old parables that I it's interesting because it's kind of like when people show you who they are to a certain
yes,
extent, believe
Right.
them. That's that Maya Angelou quote.
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, I think competition for me, like I think as long as you're utilizing it for the right reasons, like it can be one of the best factors in life. Like I am now in a place where I feel like I'm competing not just against myself, but I'm trying to push the technology that I'm playing around with and competing in that area. And so it like constantly feels like it's not that you're trying to one up other people, but you're trying to figure it out in a way that you get brownie points for, right?
Mhm.
So
some people love to compete to just prove that they can.
well,
You know,
recognition is a huge part of
Yeah.
competition for a
Yep.
lot of people.
it's
Like
like
they say, right? Like if you're going to envision there's a bunch of people that are about to go to the Olympics, right? They have to envision a gold medal around their necks, which means they
absolutely.
have to beat hundreds of other people to get that medal.
There's
So it's
there's
like,
professional sports psychologists.
yeah. So that exists anywheres, and I think, as I've seen AI grow and everyone competing against one another, that's awesome. I am one of those people, maybe it's the way that I was raised, whatever it may be, but I am so, like, pro change that I consistently am going, "What
Yeah,
is the next thing?" I'm never really turning around trying my best to grab onto whatever's back there and be like, "No, let's
right.
keep this with us." And so, like, I grew up loving and enjoying cinema and films and the way that they're done. There's a romanticism to it. But I am also perfectly okay with letting those romanticisms go now. I wasn't before, now, because I'm fully aware that this is where the future is going.
Right.
And I
Right.
I it's kind of it's not a will people still shoot movies with cameras? Yes, it'll just be very difficult and niche. Like that's just where it will be.
Yeah.
So, people still
Well,
make vinyl
the
records, I
reason
have
the
some.
reason the
Yep.
reason that golf and tennis have a senior tour is because it allows the people with the old thoughts and the old way of doing things a way to compete against each other because they're not playing against the young studs. That's for damn
Mm-mm.
sure.
The game changes, yeah, and I think
It's
that
like,
that's something that I'm becoming more aware of too, now being 30, like, in my
yeah,
30s. Like, I actually feel like I've grown up enough to, um to perceive myself as a leader and to perceive myself as someone that can do things, and I think it
yeah,
took, like, my adolescence to get myself to a point of not doubting that
right,
that that thing I told you from Dune, right? Like that opening scene in the first Dune, and this is in the book too, where his father talks to him and says, a person is called to lead, and it's answering that call. It's
right.
not you can't will yourself to lead people. You have to be called to lead people.
Yeah.
And I've tried my best to like put myself in positions to support and help people, but now I'm much more okay with being the leader and pushing things to where I feel like the
Being
most
called.
people will benefit. Yeah, like I'm actually listening to that whisper more now. So,
Yeah, it's
my
it's
competition
really
comes from that.
yeah, it's really one of my mentors said this to me. It was Roger Penske, a billionaire, and he said, "Whenever you're looking for someone to help you, you're elected."
Right.
Now,
It's like
like
JFK
I
said, right?
like my other mentors, did did he say that to every employee? I'll never know. But you could immediately, if you said that to people, and they weren't waiting for their supervisor. They wasn't waiting for someone to tell them what to do, that they took personal initiative on something that they
Mhm.
needed to be. Man, do they stick out. You really stick out when you're a person going, what why is he still here? Well, he said he was in his zone and wanted to complete that. So he wasn't standing by the time clock at 4, 4:50, bullshitting with the other engineers. No,
Yeah,
And so
when it's
I just heard,
I love that, like,
another
that
about Reddit
Oppenheimer scene where it's like he's
that
still thinking about it laying in bed, like those people that just can't it's like a disease for them, like, they can't get
yeah,
away from it. I
Right.
love
I
that stuff,
heard,
it's so cool.
Dale Earnhardt Jr. Has his own podcast, and so he's had some
That's funny.
really cool people on there. And the guy that was Ray Abraham, that actually was Jimmy Johnson's crew chief. So Mahomes can win a lot of stuff, but it's going to be difficult for Reed not to be entered into the conversation as one of the best coaches that's ever been in the NFL. And so, so he's sitting across and he's going, yeah, he says, I just wanted to be one of the guys. And he said, so Ricky Hendricks hired him. And I forget, he was doing something like really minimal stuff, like I'm doing whatever. I'm a gopher, go for that, go for
Mhm.
this. You're
An
just
intern.
like, you're like
Yep.
an intern, right? And he said, he got called into the boss's office and he says, I've never met the boss. I was hired as an employee. And he got brought in and he says, we're making some good changes around here. And I want you to be a crew chief. And he went, so you don't know who I am. So Ray Abraham, I think yeah, he was Jeff Gordon's crew chief. They won 4
Okay.
world championships, and it was so funny that he said, I spent 15 minutes, the first 15 minutes of my conversation with the guy that owns my company, telling him you got the wrong guy.
That's
He's
funny.
like, my name tag got messed up with somebody, da 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 da. And he said, Rick Hendricks kept looking at me and he says, listen, I got your back. You're a leader. And he goes, I never understood what he was talking about. And he said, so now I'm being a crew chief. And he said there was 3 crew chiefs that he looked at. One of them was with Richard Petty. And he said there was, so the other crew chief was the guy that had Dale Earnhardt's car. And he goes, I didn't know any better. He said, I called them up and said, Ricky Hendricks is asking me to be the new crew chief for Jeff Gordon in his new car. And the guy went, great. How can I help you? He goes, I don't have a fucking clue what I'm doing. And the guy goes, no problem. And so there's Earnhardt Jr. looking at Ray Abraham, and he goes, the crew chiefs that were helping you were on the competitive team? And he goes, yeah. And they told me not to tell anybody. And you seeing Junior go, you're telling me 2 of the best crew chiefs that ever been in NASCAR was talking to you on the phone, telling you what to do? And he goes, yeah. And he goes, oh my God. He goes, no one's going to believe that. And he goes, well, it is what it is. And he said, do you know how many times your father tried to win the Daytona 500? And he goes, his whole life. He won every race, including Daytona during the spring, but never won the Daytona 500. 7 world championships. 7 world championships. Never, ever won the Daytona 500. And so everyone's going, God, come on. This is one of the biggest races. He's never won a Super Bowl, but been racing for 20 years. Can you imagine that?
Yeah,
And
that's
being the
insane.
best, being the best.
Mhm.
So win 7 world championships and never win the Daytona 500. So he goes, do you remember the time that your dad won? And he goes, it's one of the biggest moments in history of NASCAR. Everyone says that. He said magic happened that night. He goes, Jeff Gordon's car got destroyed. And he goes, I remember that. He goes, guess who did the shock package for your dad's car? And his son goes, What are you talking about? I did. And he's going, people are going to be pissed off. And he goes, those crew chiefs helped me so much during my career is when I knew our car wasn't going to win. I knew how to set up Jeff's car. And I went over and gave all that information to Dale Earnhardt's crew chief so he could win that Daytona 500. And we were talking through this whole thing about competition being negative. When you got this young crew chief that came in and asked the two of the best if he could help them out, and a competitor would normally say, "You're out of your mind, kid. Learn just like I did. Learn through the school of hard knocks." But they understood how to pay it forward and give it forward, and then it came back. And so if you guys have never seen a moment like that, Dale Earnhardt won the Daytona 500, and it's the only time in history that when he did his burnouts and he came back onto pit row, makes me emotional because he ended up dying there. But every person on every team came out and he gave high fives to every person on that team. Every team, every crew chief high fived him. And then he goes out in the next year and loses control and dies at the exactly same speedway. And then the next year, the guy that took over his car, Michael Waltrip, won. And the next year, his son won. So, man, when behind the scenes, it's sad that there are some people out there that are competitive, but they want everyone to win what they want for themselves. They want for everybody else. And there are some good people, and don't give up hope, because I believe those kind of people are making the big difference behind the scenes, and they just don't get enough credit.
Amen.
That's a perfect way to end it. That was beautiful. Thanks,
yeah. Can't follow it at all. Well, ladies and gentlemen,
thanks for
Thank you.
Yeah, love you too. Thank you so much. And that is Unlimited Wisdom episode 6. And you can follow Robert Hollis at roberthollis.com. Also, if you'd like to join our exclusive communities, the Inner Circle, you can join us by going to roberthollis.com/join to register. There will be lots of great exclusive content, and you'll be able to participate in our special breakthrough sessions to help you move on to the next level. Please don't forget to like and share this video on YouTube and share it with others. It'll help our community grow and reach those with ears to hear. Thank you so very much and a shout out to our executive producer, Matt Hollis. He's a fellow visionary. Bless you, Matt. Thank you. And of course, Robert. Wow.
Thank you so much.
So much for being the other visionary behind all of this. And thank you for joining us. We appreciate you. And we're so glad that you could be here with us on Unlimited Wisdom. I'm Craig Jackman on behalf of Matt and Robert. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your time. Please be good to yourselves. Be cash. And until next time, bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for watching.
Thank you, Craig.
See you next time.
You. You're awesome.
Love you guys.
Love you, Matt. Love you, Robert.